I'm cool with it.
Right.
You should hear it out there.
Welcome to Inside.
All right, so we're doing
Pregame Live. Welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame Live, presented by DraftKings at Goose Island Brewhouse here in awesome Fish Town. Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame Live, presented by DraftKings. We are here at the awesome Goose Island Brewhouse. Look at the crowd behind us. Everybody's excited for the Eagles game tonight, right? All right. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. The man with the yellow pants.
That's right.
That's former Eagles Pro Bowl left tackle Trey Thomas.
Check me out, man. The missus was like, you know what? Your pants out of season. She
what
tried
season?
to tell me, I don't know. I mean, who does that?
It's only winning season on this panel,
I'm
so
just
you're
trying
a winner.
to throw something on. Let's go. I mean,
You haven't learned that yet? What's in season and what's out of
Well, the
season?
missus said the shade of yellow was out of season.
It's a little out of season. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a summertime thing.
Like, what, man? It's still nice out. I didn't know you
Hey,
were
70 degrees for a guy who manscapes. You got to know what's in season.
Well, you know what?
Well, if you don't know already, the man in the very seasonable navy jacket right there is Greg Cosell from NFL Films and also ESPN's NFL Matchup Show. And we're going to talk about this game tonight. Eagles at 49ers, primetime game. The Eagles didn't lose last week,
No.
but they didn't win either. So we got a lot to get on. We're here every week, 3 hours before kickoff, taking you to an hour before kickoff, no matter when the game is, no matter what time. So if you're watching at home, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on satellite, somewhere out in space, please hit the share button for us. Make this the most watched pregame show on the planet and even in outer space, of course. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I just mentioned it. The Eagles are winless after tying the Bengals last week. Now, the Eagles have only tied twice since 1997. Both times have come against Cincinnati, one last week and one in 2008. I was there in Cincinnati in 2008. That man right there was there too.
We played in Cincinnati?
But you don't remember it.
No, I don't remember.
What? How can you not remember?
I don't remember games like that. I don't know. It's just, it is what it is. Like, I look at my wall and I have all these game balls, and I have no idea.
You don't remember the games, really?
No, I don't.
So, like, if we at NFL Films want to interview you about specific games and things you wouldn't remember?
No.
You remember
Like,
the
I'd
Super
have to-
Bowl.
I remember bits of it, but like I don't.
Wow.
Like unless it's something that I go back and watch. Really, I don't.
You know, it's funny because I've probably interviewed in my 41-year career in NFL films 1,000+ play, if not more. And some guys remember every play. Even guys who've been retired for 30 years, they remember every play like it happened yesterday. Yeah. Some guys remember maybe 5 plays, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't because I've always been. All right, on to the next play.
Right.
So I can't sit up there and
one play at a time.
One play at a time.
One play at a time.
Once that play is over with, if it was a win or a loss, that's all right. Get on to the next play.
Wow.
So, I
as Bill Belichick would say, we're on to Cincinnati, or in your case, we're over Cincinnati.
Right. Clearly.
One thing, and weird thing, real quick, is that you don't remember it, but you should be excused because your own quarterback that day didn't remember or just know that games can end in ties. So I'm going to give you a free pass. All right, Donovan didn't remember that the game could be a tie. You also remember, though, in San Francisco, a game where the fire alarm went off at the team hotel at 3 in the morning.
I was coaching then. I was on the staff with Chip Kelly, and we flew out there the night before a game. I'm not sure what time that game was. I think it was like a 4 o'clock game.
Eastern, right.
Yeah, and so now here we are at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. The fire alarm is going off, and everybody has to come downstairs. Everybody has to evacuate and sit out there in the lobby for a couple minutes for them to check and make sure that this was a fake fire alarm, and then now everybody gets. I thought it was genius by them to do something like
you
that.
Definitely suspect foul play.
Yeah, of course it was foul play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, a little gamesmanship.
I wish I would have thought of something like that when they flew out here.
Well, there you go. Well, no reports yet of any shenanigans going on last night at the Eagles team hotel. But
we'll take care of the shenanigans today, Jeff.
Yeah, there might be some shenanigans on the field. Speaking of shenanigans, we've got lineup changes for the Eagles as we do seemingly every week. Adam, why don't you start us off with, obviously the big ones are in the secondary and the O-line. Let's talk quickly about the secondary first because Avonte Maddox is out, and then his replacement, Trevor Williams, hurt his rib. Now he's out. What are the Eagles doing opposite Darius Slay?
All right, so I'm told it's the last man standing. I'm told they're going to move the old cornerback, Jalen Mills, from safety to corner, and then Marcus Epps, who the Eagles added last year, will fill in for Mills at safety. So those are your 2 lineup changes there. I thought I knew the Eagles roster well. If Mills gets hurt, Jeff, I cannot tell you who will play outside quarter at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would think maybe Cre'Von LeBlanc would because now he's still a reserve quarterback. I think the question becomes, fellas, real quick, is if Jalen Mills is being taken away from the safety position back on the outside, A, do you worry now he get beaten over the top like he was known for? And B, that kind of hybrid safety position could be a good coverage position against a guy like George Kittle.
Yeah.
So are they weakening themselves by moving a guy back to that position and then having to go with Epps and who knows who as the third safety?
I think so because now you came in and you had this nice little blitz package that came together. I thought Mills played a solid game last week. I mean, there was one series where the touchdown series that he got picked on throughout that series, but I think overall he came out and he played a solid game with I think he had a sack and a half. He had a couple of tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits. So, I mean, I think he was extremely productive in there at safety. Now you switch him and you put him back at corner. I don't know. Again, this is where you're making changes, when you've just got someone that seems like he's just starting to feel comfortable at one spot, and then you're throwing him out there. I think it does weaken the defense.
But the bottom line is, Jeff, they're out of players.
Right.
This is what they have to do. Here's a guy who started there for many, many years at the cornerback position. They got to live with it. As you and I said on Inside the Birds podcast, probably 3 or 4 times for the last month, they cannot afford 1 injury at outside corner. Now they've got 2, and they are really hurting there, and Kyle Shanahan's on the other side.
All right, well, speaking of the other side, let's go to offense where, I mean, bad just turns to worse for the Eagles' offensive line. Jason Peters, who had himself quite a week with being out with an illness, and then we thought it was a shin that he hurt against Cincinnati, and then it was fatigue, and now all of a sudden he's got a foot/toe something injury in that area that lands him on IR. A lot of people did not see that coming. This is an offensive line that's already had a lot of patchwork, fellas. So where do they go, Adam, from here as far as we know Jordan Mailata, I've been told, is going to be the starting left tackle for this game.
So a couple things they did in practice this week, I'm told. Yes, Mailata, Jeff, did take the ones when Peters didn't work. He took all the backup work, so he will start today, make his first NFL start. He's only played, I think, in 1 game now in his 3rd season. So what they also did is they gave Mailata backup right tackle reps along with Jack Driscoll. So they clearly want to get him acclimated just like Big V did when he got work at right tackle and left tackle earlier in his career. But This will be Mailata's first start in the National Football League, and I'm looking forward to it because this guy is immensely talented. There are some challenges, but I look forward to it.
Trey, you have broken down Jordan Mailata's preseason tape from a couple of years ago on your YouTube channel. You should all check it out, In the Trenches with Trey Thomas on YouTube. So give me a real cliff notes on what you think you're going to see from Mailata tonight.
Well, he hasn't played a lot of left in games. A lot of times when he went to playing in games, it was more on the right side. He played most of his reps on the right side when Jack Driscoll went down against Washington. And then now you come out and you play left side when JP goes down. Now, here are a couple things, just real quick. When you look at Jordan Mailata on the left side, I'm just going to throw a clip up here just so you guys can see it. Right here, you can see, based off of his stance, the difference between run and pass. When he gets in his stance, his feet are wide. Now he's in a more balanced stance. You can tell that that's going to be run. When his stand gets a little staggered, that left foot gets a little further back, you know that it's pass. So he's going to be showing what's going to be happening. Now, if you're smart as an offensive unit, you would kind of play off of that a little bit and have him get in a balanced stance, come with some play action runs or whatever to kind of get that defense sucked in, and now you go over the top. But, I mean, he's going to show you what you're doing based off his stance.
Greg, put your 49ers defensive cap on. You're Robert Saleh. Did I get that right, Saleh?
Yep.
Yeah. He's the defensive coordinator. You've got a guy starting left tackle for the first time on prime time. How do you go after him? You go after him?
They're hurting a bit, too, on the defensive line. I mean, last week, Ziggy Ansah played 21 snaps for them. Deion Jordan played 20 snaps for them. So they're playing backup players as well. But I think what you would probably want to do to some degree is you'd want to stun. Mm-hmm. You'd want to force Mailata to play with, the term I use is accelerated vision. You want to force Mailata to have to see things and work through things visually at the speed of the game. Fair, Troy? When you agree with that?
Absolutely.
I think you want to do that for sure. But keep in mind, Robert Saleh, and we'll get into this more with the 49er defense as we go, but they're not a heavy blitz defense. They'll blitz on occasion. They like to blitz their corner, their slot corner, Williams. They also like to blitz Ward, the safety, when he comes down. They're not a heavy blitz team, though. So we'll see, but I think you'll see them stunned quite a bit.
It is week 4. This will be the 4th offensive line combination for the Eagles. Jeez. They are on pace for 16 different offensive line combinations. Hey, it's a long season. It could happen. We'll have to see. Hopefully it won't. Certainly cornerbacks and offensive linemen, not the only people hurting for the Eagles. Wide receiver, also a position right now where they are decimated. Alshon Jeffrey is not ready to return. He is out today. Deshaun Jackson, hamstring last week. Adam, not going to play today. What's his deal?
Jeff, I'm told he has a hamstring strain in grade 1. That is a week to 1 to 2 week recovery. This is nothing new for Deshaun, who's had hamstring problems throughout his long NFL career. So right now, Jeff, they've got 2 healthy receivers, so they have a lot of work to do.
J.J. Arcega-Whiteside doubtful to play tonight because of a calf injury. Now, we weren't exactly sure because we were doing in the middle of the show what was going on last week. Apparently, he had a conversation with Howie and the coaching staff before the game. Then he was barely used. Now it seems he has a calf injury, but he did play in the game. So I wonder about the messaging there of trying to get him in at certain points, getting nothing out of him, and now he's doubtful for a game where they could certainly use a guy.
Well, they probably use him in a lot of run plays just because of his size. You're just going to bring him in, let him get out there and be one of those run blockers on the edge for Sanders. But I mean, when you have the problem with this is just the timing of everything. When you have a receiver go down or whatever, and then you say, okay, you know what, we're going to have to lean on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Doug Peterson came out and said, we're going to have to lean on J.J. more to go into this game, and then he doesn't even make it out of warm-ups? Like, what is that? Like, how do what is that? How can that happen when you're supposed to be a player that we're going to lean on? You're someone that we're waiting for you to come out here and emerge. You know that you went into a cave and you sat down and you put yourself together and you came back ready to go this offseason. You had a solid training camp, and then now they get ready to lean on you, and now all of a sudden you have a calf injury. Like, what is that?
Well, the saga continues for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and it doesn't seem to get better as the weeks go along 49ers, also a very banged up club. We talked about it. No Joey Bosa, no Jimmy Garoppolo tonight, no Richard Sherman, who's been out.
Nick Bosa.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Joey Bosa?
Yeah, you did.
Well, he's not playing for them either, all right?
Right. That's right. Good point.
But they do get George Kittle back. Obviously a big addition for them. Do get Jerick McKinnon back. They don't have Raheem Mostert also. So they're very banged up, but they get Kittle and Deebo Samuel back.
Yeah.
It changes their offense a little, does it not?
Without question. Yeah, I mean, do we want to start talking about the 49ers offense now?
Yeah. Well, give us an idea of what Deebo Samuel, Greg, gives the Niners in his return.
You have to start with one thing, first of all. You have to start with this is a team that plays out of base personnel on 65% of their offensive snaps. That's unheard of in today's NFL. Most teams play predominantly out of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers. They play out of 21 personnel. And when you see them run plays like they ran with Brandon Ayuk last week or Deebo Samuel in the Super Bowl, jet sweeps, orbit reverses, those are not gimmick plays for the 49ers. Those plays are part of their offense. So those are things you absolutely have to be aware of, and there are alerts for the defense for those kinds of plays based on alignment.
Right.
But Samuel is really good at that. Ayuk now, Brandon Ayuk, the rookie, is really good at that. So their pass game is, even with Mullins, is still very efficient because of Kyle Shanahan. So this is still a difficult offense to play against, but you will see the Eagles, I imagine, play out of their base personnel quite a bit tonight, which means they'll have 3 linebackers on the field.
Yeah, the 49ers also are not going to have Jordan Reed. Now, he filled in kind of nicely as that second tight end.
But they have another tight end that they like a lot, Ross Dwelly, number 82.
Yeah.
So he will play.
Reed has killed the Eagles in the past, though. When he was with Washington, obviously he's had a lot of concussion issues, but he won't be able to play. I neglected to mention Solomon Thomas, another defensive lineman. Isn't it weird how the 49ers have pretty much as many significant injuries as the Eagles, but the complexion of their season compared to the Eagles, that no one's sitting here saying, I think the 49ers are going to really struggle and get blown out tonight. Right. Because they've been able to beat some teams so far. Granted, not so good. Jets, Giants are their wins, I believe.
Yes, the last 2.
But their functionality, they seem to have it all together despite their injuries.
They seem like they play they're well prepared. And they come out there and they fight. They don't make any excuses about who's not playing or mope about it. They come out there and they play solid ball.
Right. All right, the Eagles did do some transactions this week I want to get to. The most interesting one, and we'll talk about them all, is the signing of Hakeem Butler, who was a wide receiver, to come and play tight end for them. They signed him off the practice squad of the Panthers. They converted him immediately. Somebody asked me on Twitter, when was this guy a tight end?
We'll find out in about an hour.
I really like that kid coming out of Iowa State. I thought he was a wide receiver. I guess it didn't work out in Arizona. He had some issues coming out with catching the ball, which is always a problem for a wide receiver. But I thought he could play wide receiver in the NFL. So, I thought he was a 4th-round pick. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 215, 220. I thought he moved well. I don't know what happened in Arizona. Obviously, he got cut when Cliff Kingsbury got there. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it works out.
Maybe Did you like him as an outside receiver?
I thought he could play wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, he's not a burner. You know, there's a lot of guys who play wide receiver, as Trey knows, in this league. You don't have to be a 4-4 guy to play wide receiver in the NFL.
How hard would it be, Trey, for him to come to this new team? They all practice, Wednesday, Thursday, and a walkthrough on Friday that's kind of light, and to make some kind of impact. And we have to find out when the inactives come out, if you will. But how hard would that be for him to make an impact?
Well, it depends on how you're going to use them. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the same stuff. It's just the way you call it.
Right.
And the communication that happens at the line of scrimmage. So, if you're moving him in the tight end, so that means if he's only 215, 220, so that means all the outside zone runs are going to go away from him. So it kind of puts you in a hole where you kind of telegraph where you're going to be running. And a lot of times you see with our offense, we use a lot of these little tight end traps, or that's where Dallas came in. Why Dallas was so valuable to this offense, because he was a much better run blocker. Right. But now you have someone that's only 220, 230, and you're saying, all right, we're going to need you to get down in there and play tight end. Well, you kind of showing your hand on where the run is going to go.
By the way, just one quick little point. It's one reason why a lot of coaches, and Doug Peterson does not come from this school. He's a West Coast methodology coach because he comes from the Andy Reid school. But it's one reason why offensive coaches a lot like sort of the Don Coryell offensive terminology better, because wide receivers can come in and play more quickly because it's all numbers based as opposed to word based. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of words in the in the West Coast offense approach, and it takes time to learn all those words.
Verbiage.
Whereas in the Don Coryell, which is made it through the Mike Martz, there's a lot of people who still do that in the NFL. Those are all numbers for receivers, so you can just tell a receiver you're going to run a 9 route, a 6 route, and an 8 route, and he knows exactly what that is, and he knows what the call is in the huddle, and it's easier.
Right. All right, well, we'll see. I have a hard time thinking Hakeem Butler is going to come in and
I would
make
doubt
an
he'll be
impact in
active,
his
but
I
who
doubt
knows?
because he only had 3 days of practice. But
Right.
Jeff, here's the thing. I know we're going to get to the transactions here. They are only to dress 4 receivers tonight. I mean, that's where they're at. They have no one else left.
Right.
This is where they're at here. So they're lucky that the Niners are without 3 of their top 4 corners. That's kind of where the Niners are at in the secondary, but it has not hurt the Niners as they were able to win on the road convincingly against the Giants and the Jets.
Is this the immovable object versus the resistible force? Eagles wide receivers versus Niners cornerbacks? I mean, anybody,
yeah,
who
like
knows?
who wins, right?
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Who wins, right.
All right, let's talk about who they protected on the practice squad. Deontay Burnett is now protected for the 2nd straight. Now, it's the elevation that you can only do twice, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they actually elevated him again.
Right.
So that they're out of elevations for him.
Correct.
So what does that mean?
So you only get, with this year's rules, instead of signing him off the practice squad, you call him up like a pitcher from the AAA, but you only get 2 call-ups. So this is their 2nd call-up for him. So they're out
So
of
if they
him.
want him to be on the team next week, what does that mean?
It means
They're
they're
going
going
to have to sign him.
Sign him.
Right, they have
Pick
to
him
sign
up.
him, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
I think that's pretty much a given at this point. I'd be
They might
shocked
as well leave
if
him
they
on there,
didn't.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Why don't they leave him on there?
Leave him on the
Yeah,
53?
the 53. Just leave him on there. Don't send him back down.
Well, that's probably what they'll want
I
to
would
be
think
doing,
they would
yeah.
do that. And Travis Fulgham. Travis Fulgham was a 6'2.5" basketball player from high school who was recruited by one team, I'm told, for college football. That was Old Dominion, which is really known for basketball, really not football. Yes, they do have a football program, but anyway, he's been sort of a mini star in training camp. Now, when I say that, 3s against 2s, 2s against 3s, but he's long and he can run. This kid's got ability. He will dress tonight as a 4th receiver. They're at this point, he should get on the field. He actually may get a couple targets.
What about Adrian Killens? He was another guy who was signed to the 53. You saw him in training camp.
Yeah.
I'm curious to get a little scouting report on him.
He actually lined up as a slot receiver. This kid has got outstanding short area quickness, but he's really, really small. So if Greg Ward, as Greg Cosell told us last year, line up outside, I think he'd line up outside this year. He may line up in the slot a little bit. So watch out him tonight where the short area passes are run after the catch.
Greg, anything on Adrian Killens that you recall
I don't know
studying?
much about him, so I'm not going to make it up.
It almost feels like a reverse situation of what's going on in Washington with Antonio Gibson, who
Right.
was both in college at Memphis, but he was really more of a wide receiver that they've converted into a running back here. I think Killens is a running back primarily. I know they used him a lot of different ways, but
Yeah.
he's going to probably be a slot receiver.
Just get into his hands. Now, when we talk about, and I know over the show, we're going to talk about the lack of interesting play calling, to say the least. But this kid is a guy you could use on a reverse. Use him in a different way because his short area quickness is incredible, and he's so small. He's short. He's just maybe an inch taller than Darren Sproles, to give you an idea of how small he is.
It'd be interesting to see if he plays and they can get the ball in his hands and see what he can do. There is the element, I feel, of surprise with a guy like that, where the 49ers don't know how to game plan for him. They don't have any tape on him and don't know what he's capable of doing. So maybe it's a little X factor for the Eagles today. We'll get into their offensive breakdown. Real quick, Jalen Reagor went on IR this week. Not surprising. I mean, he's going to be out quite a while. Maybe
Should be around week 9, unfortunately, is when he might be able to return. Guess what? That's their bye. So week 10 makes more sense. Super outside shot for week 8. I don't see it, but I was told just a smidgen of a chance for week 8.
Well, it's not his fault that he's hurt, but it's certainly not helping the Eagles to see Justin Jefferson having 2 back-to-back 100-yard games. Last week, Ayuk had a touchdown for the Niners. He's going to play tonight. More just rubbing salt in the wounds. Quez Watkins is still on IR. Now, he's been lifted off the window. He's able to practice, but again, that's not a guy who, after missing all this time, I think we can expect to get on the field and do anything. So, all right, that's it for the transactions. Again, if you're watching this show, please hit the retweet, hit the share. Please help make us the most watched pregame show here in the Delaware Valley and the nation, as we have people watching from everywhere.
The nation. Wow.
We get a lot of people
Overseas
who are watching and reach out to us. So
Global.
That's right.
Right?
I call it the Trey Thomas Yellow
Worldwide,
Pants
wide,
effect.
wide,
I mean, how do you not know? I mean, it's just infectious. All right, let's get into the Eagles' offense because certainly it needs to be spiced up, and I don't know how they do that today with all their injuries. Doug Peterson once said that winning in Philadelphia, winning big, was going to be the new norm. And Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie spoke earlier in the season, the preseason, about to win, you have to have a top 5 offense. That is their expectations. But when you look at the Eagles' offense through 3 weeks, it's been pretty offensive. They rank 24th in yards per game, 27th in points per game, 20th in red zone, 15th in time of possession, and, well, you know what? Top 10 in third down percentage. They're 9th there at 47%. Overall, not very good. And this week, Doug Peterson was asked what's going on with their offense, what's going on with their football team, and here's what Doug Peterson had to say.
Football team, where, as I said after the game, we're not very smart. You know, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're losing or we're leaving touchdowns on the field offensively, and we're just not executing. And those are things that we're going to really look hard at this week. And if we got to simplify, we'll simplify. If we've got to go up tempo, we'll go up tempo. You know, things that have been successful in the past.
Well, you heard Doug say it. We're not a very good football team right now. Greg, offensively, when you look at what the Eagles have done through 3 weeks, I know they've got injuries. We know that.
Right.
The offensive line and everything. But when you watch them on tape, what stands out to you about why they're struggling?
Well, I think there's issues of execution and there's issues of scheme. I mean, obviously, when your quarterback is missing throws that are there to be made, that's a problem. But you don't scheme based on the fact that your quarterback might miss throws.
Right.
You scheme to beat the other team's defense. And I thought this was true even last year. I think that there needs to be much more within their pass game concepts and route concepts to help receivers get open. I see almost every team in the league every week. Mm-hmm. And I see receivers that by NFL standards are open. You don't see that very often with the Eagles. And that comes back to scheme and design and approach. And I know it's in their playbook because Doug Peterson has the same playbook, I'm sure, as Andy Reid and other West Coast methodology coaches around the NFL, and there's a number of them. So it's incumbent, particularly when you lose your talent, it's incumbent upon the offensive coaches to provide schemes and pass game concepts, route concepts that allow your receivers to be open versus zone and man. And there's concepts that you can do. That's what their job is.
Are the concepts, you think, different from what they were when they were winning the Super Bowl and the year after that? Or is it that opponents understand more what the Eagles do over the last few years, and now it's on Doug to draw up some new stuff?
Well, it's not a matter of drawing up new stuff. It's a matter of what you call that's in your playbook. I mean, he's not, you don't win in this league, in my view anyway, and I think Trey would agree. You don't win by gimmicks. You don't win by tricking the opponent. Everybody knows pretty much what everybody does. Mm-hmm. It's what you call, when you call it, how you get to concepts. I mean, Andy Reid is not, obviously he's got a lot of speed, but Andy Reid is not reinventing the wheel. He's not doing things that no one has ever seen in the history of the NFL.
Right.
Sean Payton's another good example of that. It's how you get to basic concepts. There's not 1,000 pass game concepts. It's how do you get to them with personnel, formation, alignments, all kinds of different things, how you get to those. I think they need to do a better job with that.
Tonight's head coach on the other sideline for the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, Jeff. He is the epitome of creating space. When you talk to 49er players over the years, I've talked to Carlos Hyde, players every time I go to training camp, Deebo Samuel is the perfect example of how you create space. Here's a guy that went in the second round, had a great Senior Bowl week. That really helped him. I don't know that he's a dynamic player, but you notice everything they get is going forward with him in space, run after the catch. It's Kyle's ability to create room for these guys to get open. It's exactly what Greg's talking about.
Which is exactly
We're not seeing it here.
What
There's
they
really
plan to do
two
with
parts.
Rager, but
like if you're playing against zone, okay, and they're going to get a pretty heavy dose of zone tonight. It's going to be mostly cover 3 and cover 4 because the Niners have played more cover 4 this year than they have in years past. So there's two ways to attack zone. There's finding the voids in zone because all zones have voids, otherwise everybody would play the same zone. Every zone has voids. So it's finding the voids in zones with your route concepts, or 2, isolating a particular player who has a conflict based on either the routes or a run-pass conflict depending on the play call. So those are the two ways you can attack zone coverage. You need to do that. You can't just say, hey, Zach Ertz, let's go out and win your routes. I mean, you do that once in a while. Yes, you have to win one-on-one every once in a while, but you can't just do that all the time, particularly when their three main weapons tonight will be Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, and Greg Ward.
Right. Trey, you went out to Kansas City because you talked about this in our opening show, and you were kind of really impressed by Andy Reid's offense. I mean, you'd seen it even before this, but how it's evolved since he was coaching you guys and what he's been able to do, largely because of the talent that he has. But he actually started doing some different things even when he had Alex Smith. If you put yourself in Doug's shoes right now, he's got injuries on the offensive line, injuries here, injuries there. Can he even adjust in that kind of way, or is he just trying to get through a game right now and keep guys healthy before he can do that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, that should be something that should. What Coach Reid and them are doing is something that starts in training camp.
Yep.
You know, that starts in mini camp. This is something that's drilled throughout the process. This isn't something that just happens during game week. What they're talking about, when you look at how Big Red and them running practice, you're talking about a team that's out there where spacing is extremely important.
Yes.
Timing is extremely important. Making sure that your receivers are running at routes full speed so that the quarterbacks know where you're going to be, and you always take away those different options, and you have a quarterback that's thinking, all right, you know what, if 1 and 2 are gone, then I need to look on the other side of it, and you know that guy is going to be where he needs to be. So I think what you see with this offense and with this team is that there's a lack of preparation and a lack of attention to detail when it comes to game during the week, because it shows itself in game time when, you know, you're missing throws, or the guy isn't where it needs to be, or the spacing is different. You know, you look at the one play where you had Miles Sanders streaking up the sideline. You know that Wentz should hit that throw 10 out of 10 in a practice, but maybe Miles wasn't running at the same pace. Maybe it wasn't the same type of coverage. The timing of it was different. So, you know, there you go. That's where, to me, it just seems like it starts showing itself during games.
I think the spacing part's critical, particularly when you're playing against zone. Because I'll give you a perfect example of a route concept, and this is an easy route concept to understand. It's called flood. It's a 3-level stretch concept. Trey knows what this is. So what you have is you have a short route, an intermediate route, and a vertical route. Okay, you usually call it when you anticipate zone because it's a spacing concept. Okay, every team has it in their playbook. It's absolutely in the West Coast playbook because I've seen the Eagles do it. Andy Reid does it a lot. So it's how you get to that particular concept. There's 15 different ways to get just to that basic concept. Now, obviously, you could say if you have great players, you're better at everything. That's a cop-out statement. You still have to line up and play. So now how are you going to attack a defense that is predominantly zoned with the players you have? You have to find ways to get to your basic concepts to create space against a zone defense.
Of course, one of their best players who's out on the field and who creates space is usually Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun's not going to be playing today. He hasn't played a lot of games since the Eagles reacquired him last year. In fact, he's missed a lot more than he's played.
He's only been available, I think, for 4 games.
4 games since the start of last year. Now, when a reporter brings this up, that reporter often gets killed by the people, the fans, saying, you make too much of a little thing, you're making too much of a little thing. I'm going to go to Trey Thomas on this. Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I'm wrong, you can call me out on it.
No, that's good.
Deshaun Jackson released a rap video album this week.
Yes, an album.
I believe for the second time in his playing career. At a time in which the Eagles are about as dysfunctional and he's not even on the field. What is your impression of that as far as what it means going on inside the NovaCare complex?
To me, I just felt like it was just bad timing. You know, when you have a situation where you have a team that's struggling to find wins, right now you're 0-2-1, and you know, and there's just so much where you need leadership on the field, you need leadership in that locker room, you need leadership in the practice field, because it's going to have to start with the leaders to turn this thing around. So to see Deshaun Jackson release a rap album.
Against all odds.
Against all odds. There's the rap album, there's the cover art there, where it's against all odds. And, you know, you release a rap album on the day that they release that you're not going to be playing in this game. That to me is just bad timing. It shows a lot about what's going on with this team a little bit, I guess, because, you know, when you're looking at the leaders on this team and they're more concerned about the album release than getting out on the field, it just looks a certain type of way. And it doesn't show like you're trying to get out there and be all about the team and get a win.
Is that the name of the
Yeah, it's called Against All Odds.
Against All Odds.
That's a good
Against All
movie.
Odds.
You know, I mean,
Clever.
you know, maybe he's on DraftKings.
Well, that was a
and
good
the
movie
Eagles
back
were
in the day, but
getting
I'm
9
probably
points this
aging
game.
myself. Jeff Bridges, Rachel Ward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
And who sung the theme song?
Phil Collins.
Phil Collins.
That's a
correct.
great song.
Against All Odds. Very
Great
good.
song.
There you go. We reminisce about the 80s.
Yeah, yeah.
You never know what you're going to hear on Inside the Birds.
All right. Well, I just want to make it clear. That was Trey Thomas who said it, not me. So don't come down on me if I say Deshaun's being a distraction with the rap album, all right? Let's talk to Carson. Carson is not right. He has not been right all year. But when you look at some of the numbers, they're fairly staggering when you compare them to other quarterbacks in the league. Right now, Carson Wentz has a 64% passer rating, which ranks 33rd in the NFL. Completion percentage
33rd?
of 33rd.
Really?
And there's only 32 teams.
Yeah, exactly.
That means backups are coming in and playing better than
Wow.
Carson Wentz, like the one
Oy.
he's going to see tonight in Nick
Wow.
Mullins, right?
Yeah.
Passer rating of 60%, that's 30th. Interception rating of 4.5, 32nd. And his touchdown passes of 3 ranks 25th in the league. His yards per attempt at 5.6 ranks 33rd. Again, 32 teams. He ranks 33rd. The bottom line is it's not good. This is not where people expect Carson Wentz to be. When I watched the tape last week, guys, of the Bengals game, we talked about Carson's mechanics, talked about inaccuracy. I saw at times a guy who, before you even get to that point, isn't even seeing open receivers all the time. For example, Deshaun Jackson was wide open at the 4-yard line on their second possession. He throws the interception.
I know the play you're talking about.
Drives him down the field on the second time, wide open, and he just doesn't pull the trigger. And for the life of me, I watched it 10 times in a row, and he wasn't pressured. The guy was open. The cornerback was 5 yards off of him. When you see that, Greg, what comes to your mind when you see that from a quarterback?
Well, I'll go back to starting to work with Ron Jaworski in 1990. And he was one of probably 10 different people who helped me really learn the quarterback position in great detail. When you see that, that means a quarterback is just not seeing it. For whatever reason, and only the quarterback can tell you this, but he's just not seeing it. And Jaws would always tell me that there were a number of plays in every game where that was the case, but then when a quarterback is in a slump, let's use that term, that Carson Wentz is in, he's really struggling to see it right now. So what's happening is he's not recognizing what he should be recognizing. The term I always use instead of processing is elimination and isolation. He's not eliminating what's not there and isolating what is there. So he's leaving throws on the field. Your play was a good example. There were 2 or 3 others I made note of in my notes.
Greg Ward, one of those? On the same route where Greg Ward caught a touchdown, I noticed Carson.
Well, I
didn't
believe
see
he
him.
also missed Ertz on a staple play
Yes,
of theirs,
left side
which is
in.
there.
Yeah.
He hit Ertz for a touchdown on that last year against Chicago, I believe.
Right, he threw to Miles Sanders a little low and incomplete. on
Right,
that
right.
play.
Where they line up with 2 tight ends in a close formation, and Ertz runs the bang 8. They love that play because they get Ertz against an outside leverage defender. He didn't see that for whatever reason. So right now he's just not seeing it. And what happens when you're not seeing it is you end up playing slow mentally and fast physically. Because you start to rush yourself. You don't even realize you're rushing yourself, but you're rushing yourself because mentally everything, it's muddled.
Right.
So that's where he's at right now. And then you add in the ball placement, which has obviously been less than precise.
Sure.
And you have a quarterback that's fighting it. Now, I made the analogy, and a bunch of people responded on Twitter, so I'll say what I said, that to me, it's like a baseball hitter in a slump. When you're hot, you could be facing the best pitcher in the game, and the ball looks like a beach ball. When you're in a slump, you could be facing the worst pitcher on the opposing staff, and the ball looks like a BB.
Right.
Right now, the ball's a BB for Carson Wentz. He's just not seeing it. He's fighting it. He's uncomfortable playing.
Right. Well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because, Trey, I distinctly remember that Donovan McNabb would go through, specifically from 2005 into later in his later career, he would go through similar spells of inaccuracy or just offensive ruts, and everybody would wonder what's going on with him. This is many moon ago when you guys walked uphill both ways to practice, right?
Yes.
In the snow.
Yes.
Yeah. Every field goal was 50 yards.
I had one pair of socks.
Exactly.
Yes.
And you guys all shared it as a team, right? Yeah. I'm glad you guys remember.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
What would Andy Reid do, in your recollection, I hope you remember this at least, of what things that Andy could do to get Donovan out of it? Because he did have that ability to kind of all of a sudden snap out of it.
Yeah, I have no idea. Because I was always worried about, all right, I got DeMarcus Ware, I have Bruce Smith, I have, who else? O.C.
Umenyiora.
Yeah, I always mess up his
You got
last
it.
name. And whoever else that was out there. I mean, I'm going up against the baddest pass rushers in the game. I don't care what you're dealing with. Whatever you're dealing with, deal with it and get it together, because I'm trying to keep this DN off your behind.
Right.
So I really didn't,
So you were the guy on DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
So when Donovan got his
D-Ware.
when Donovan got his groin torn up from D-Ware, was that on you? Is that your fault?
I don't remember that.
But okay, so take it from just a game planning standpoint, though. Did you feel like the game plan against certain opponents, if you guys were struggling offensively, was quicker, get a rhythm, instead of kind of, more like deep shot, play action type?
I know we would always come in with, we would try to mix in some 300 jets, 300 jets, which was usually like our 3-step drop game. If we were going to try to get something deep, we would come with like a pass 67, which was the first play of the game last week, where they tried to hit Deshaun Jackson deep on the first play.
Yep.
So that's kind of like a pass 67. So it looks like run. You're protected on the backside. You're able to have a run fake, and then you can roll back out of it, hit a deep receiver down the side. But we would mix a lot of that in, but then at the end of the day, at some point, man, it's going to be 3rd and 10. So, I mean, you need to get it together.
Yeah.
Because, we're going to have to call a regular play. Whenever we wanted to get out of something, if we felt like we needed to get 5 moving, we would call like a Q8 or whatever, where it was kind of like a play action where we would fake one way and then he would roll out, and then you have a couple receivers where you just make nice little short, easy throws for him.
Well, Carson Wentz once again was asked this week in his Zoom session about getting out of his struggles and his confidence, and there was one particular answer he had that I thought was very revealing. So we're going to hear from what Carson said and then react to it. Here's Carson Wentz when asked about communications from coaches.
Far off offensively. We've done some good things. We've had some miscommunication things, some issues, the turnovers, obviously, and they're all correctable things and things we can get going in the right way, and I'm confident that we will.
All right, what stuck out to me was when he's asked about communication with his coach, he says, all of our coaches bring really good ideas, and all of them, are trying to execute and get this offense right. And Adam, that's something we've talked about a little bit over the past week or two. Is you brought in Marty Morningweg, you brought in Rich Scangarello, you brought in Andrew Briner, you have Press Taylor, you have Doug Peterson. That's 5 guys just alone who are really focused on the offense and the passing game. And you start to wonder when Carson brings it up himself that all of these guys, and he didn't mean it in a negative way, but I do wonder if there's a too many cooks environment going on here for the Brew here.
Yeah, what I would say is this. Doug Peterson, according to a couple of people I've talked to close to the situation, he likes what are called idea guys. He likes guys who bring ideas about how to handle their offense. And that's fine. But when you're in the quarterback room, there should only be one voice, and that voice has got to be Press Taylor. Whether it's the right voice or whether Carson's listening enough, that's another issue which we've talked about. But I'm okay with guys bringing different ideas. They need innovation here. The question is, and it's the next level here, what has happened to this lack of innovation that we were expecting for 3 games? We've seen none of it.
Is injuries an excuse in that it's hard to get a whole bunch of different guys on the same page when you're trying to pull multiple cards or you're trying to do this play action and misdirection? I mean, is this maybe less injuries and more rotating personnel? Does that make it difficult to really take all of your plans as a coach and bring them to fruition?
See, that's the problem when it comes to coaching. There's a lack of rotation at times. You have who your ones are, whatever your group is, and you kind of run through them with practice, and you don't really get those other guys really involved in the game plan. So that's something that, when you have this many injuries throughout the season, it's something that they should be already doing, where it's like, all right, you know what? We need everybody to kind of know a little bit about everything so that we can run some of these misdirection plays and get guys acclimated so that you make sure that everybody's making the right calls.
Well, Doug Peterson did mention doing different things this week offensively to get the offense going. One thing he said, and I was a little surprised that he advertised it so earlier in the week, is maybe going to more up-tempo offense to get his guys in rhythm. He also talked about his screen game. That's come under question a lot this week because the Eagles used to be a very good screen team, but not so much this year. In fact, Trey put together some video clips for us from last week on the difference between the Bengals screens versus the Eagles screens. So we're going to take a look at that and react. Take a look right now. We intentionally left the sound out. We just wanted you to see the difference visually so you can focus in on just the formations of what was going on. Trey, explain why the Bengals seem to have wide open guys on their screen and the Eagles did not.
Well, first of all, you see, like a lot of times when we run the screen to the boundary, it seems like. So we're always running it to the short side of the field. So maybe that's a tendency that's giving it away. And you also, what you see a lot, when you go back and you look at that play, where you had Lane Johnson where he set out on the defensive end, and then it's like he's trying to turn the defensive end back inside. Where when you go back and you look at Cincinnati, everybody is just regular pass setting, and you have to make it look like whatever the pass is. It has to be a 2-second count, then you get out into your marks. And then once you leave, you have to have your landmarks. You look at Cincinnati, a lot of times they ran their screen plays to the wide side of the field. So now one was a play action, run it to the wide side. The other one was on the right hash, and then you brought it back left. And the running back was to the right, and then he came left. So to us, it seems like we're always running it to the boundary side and to the side of the back, which makes it a lot easier for defenses to kind of key off on it.
Are the 49ers, Greg, in what you've seen so far defensively with all their personnel missing, are they a team that maybe the Eagles can get their screen going correctly against?
Well,
if
they've
they
got
execute?
two really fast linebackers. They've
do.
got Fred Warner, who to me is a top 3 linebacker in the league, and they've got Quan Alexander, who is probably 228, 230 pounds, and he can run. So, again, then you get into the scheming of the screens, as Trey's talking about. But they have two really fast linebackers, and Warner is a big-time player.
Absolutely. All right, we got to get into some offensive line talk. Certainly Jordan Mailata is going to come under the microscope. Reminder, if you're watching, wherever you're watching from, please give a share, please give a retweet, please make us viral in a very good way. We're trying to make this the most watched pregame show on the Eagles that there is. Also, be sure to check out Philadelphia Sports Nation for all your latest Philadelphia sports news. They cover the Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, Sixers, and Union, and their goal is to enhance your Philadelphia sports fan experience like nobody else. Check them out on social media at PHL Sports Nation on Twitter and their website, phlsportsnation.com. All right, it's time for some trench talk. You ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
I know, you always are. Jordan Mailata, we'll come under the microscope. I got to admit, and I'm going to bring back a painful memory here, especially for you, Trey, that when you hear about a guy making his first start at left tackle on the primetime NBC, it's hard not to think about that Winston Justice game that you didn't play in.
Yeah.
Your knee
It
was
doesn't bring
hurting.
back bad memories for me.
So now you don't have to remember it because you didn't play.
Well, it doesn't bring back bad memories for me because I was able to finish out my contract because of that game. So, you know, I was
Good way to
okay.
look at it. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because if Winston would have gone out and balled, I mean, they would have been like, all right, hey, that's it, you're done.
You should have made $25 million more because of that game, my
I was able to
friend.
finish out my
You
contract.
didn't get Wally pipped. I get it.
What was it? It was 12 sacks, I believe, in that game?
Yeah, I don't know. It was something bad.
Gave at least 6 up. I know that.
Yeah, I think OC is in the sack record book for, I think, the second most sacks in a game.
Yeah, OCU in Europe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, did Donovan give you a little call after that game?
No, I was in Alabama actually.
all right.
Because we played the game before that. We played Detroit, I believe, and that was the yellow jersey game. And I ended up getting hit on my knee that I just had surgically repaired, and had to go down to see Dr. Andrews to go get it checked out. So I'm in Atlanta watching this game, and I'm like, man, that sucks. But yeah, I get that final year of my contract. So, sorry, Winston, but
Well, you know what? Winston eventually got a little bit right, got himself a contract too.
But I was able to finish out my contract, man.
There you go. For Mailata tonight, tell me, if you're him, he's going to have so much going on in his head, so many responsibilities. What's like the number one thing? You showed the leg placement and everything. I'm talking about a big picture thing for him. What's the number one thing for him to keep in mind?
I think you just try to keep it simple. I know Coach Stout is the type of coach that he wants his offensive tackles to look into the secondary and try to recognize the safety rotation and where the blitz is going to come and all this other stuff. I think for him, you want to make him where it's just like, look, just focus on the defensive end. Make sure that you get off on the cadence. It helps that you don't have any fans in the stadium, so you don't have to worry about silent count, because that's something that would come into play if you had fans in the stadium. But now that you're in here, is no fans. You can get out there. You can hear the cadence. Now let's just focus on what that defensive end is going to give you. One of the things I noticed when you look at how he plays is that he's a catcher. He likes to get out there hands wide. He allows the defensive ends to run into him and just dive in his chest. He's going to have to be a little careful with that.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good.
When you go out there and you set and your hands are wide and you let the defensive end have your chest, then now that's going to open you up to games. That's going to open you up to any bull and goes. So I think for him, he's going to have to get a little bit, get used to getting that punch in. But, as long as he's off on the cadence, get to where you need to be. And I think one of the things they're going to kind of have the same game plan that they had when you were going up against Aaron Donald, get that ball out quick, because you know that they're going to challenge him.
Yeah, I mean, you can do certain things to scheme, right? But as Greg always mentions, eventually you're going to be in 3rd and long.
As Trey has
you
said as well.
Back and throw. And Trey has said that too. Yeah. Greg, he is a very big, athletic guy. I mean, I feel like some people are expecting doom, but maybe we actually see the dawn of somebody who can play a little bit.
Well, I
tonight.
certainly can't speak. He hasn't played much. I'm not at training camp, so I can't speak to where he stands with technique. And technique, as Trey will tell you, is so important for an O-lineman, no matter how big you are. Because let's say it is 3rd and 9, and you do let a pass rusher in your chest. It doesn't matter how big you are. If he gets in your chest, you lose.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. So, the specifics of technique, hey, that's not my area. So, but that becomes very, very important.
He is huge. He's 6'8", 350 pounds. Tremendous athleticism. But here's the problem. He's only been playing football in his life for 3 seasons. So there are going to be some plays tonight where it's just not instinctive because he's new to it, and they're going to have to live with it. But they got to let him stay with it, because he's got tremendous strength. The one thing he needs to get a little bit of a mean streak.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been told, he needs to get that a little bit. Trey, can you get that, or is it you got to be born with it?
I mean, it's not even born with it. That's what college does. You know what I'm saying? Like that. A lot of people misunderstand. Don't get that. That college kind of helps harden the skin.
Right,
Once you get your ass kicked a couple times, you start playing the game a little different, and you start having a certain type of mindset. To where I'm coming to,
I don't like getting my ass kicked.
You have to play with a certain type of aggression. And he's still learning that when it's 3 years, only 3 years in the game.
Right.
If you go back and you look at me playing 3 years of playing football, I mean, going into Florida State, they were like, hey, man, we need him to get a little meaner. But then you get out there, you get your ass kicked a couple times, you start playing the game a little different. And this is all part of the process for him. Yeah. He's going to have to go out there and go through this. You cannot cheat offensive line. You have to get your ass kicked. It has to happen.
And it happens to
and
even
it's
the
going
best.
to happen.
Yeah,
Look at what JP. Yeah. He just got out there. I mean, that's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to happen.
Exactly.
But how are you going to build off from it? And now at that process, you're going to have to you're going to be in certain, because a coach can only do so much for you.
Hey, I'll remind you, gentlemen, this man played professional rugby.
He did.
All right?
But it is a football.
I know.
But it's a different deal.
It's
different. Kicking everybody else's ass in that environment.
You're going to have to put the ukulele down. Put that down.
That's right. He could
right
sing
now,
up.
I need you on everything hard right now. Change whatever music you listen to, whatever it is. I need you on something different.
You might remember Big V's first start against Washington.
Ryan
did not go well.
him up.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, there are going to be some bad plays tonight. They just have to stay with it. The only other option they have would be Matt Pryor. They don't want him to do that. He is the last man on their depth chart, by the way. People had asked us what happened to him. He just did not have a good training camp. and he's down on the peg, down the order.
Yeah, what about
the
that?
other thing I would say is this.
Yeah.
And this is also something else that I learned from Ron Jaworski. He would tell me that Dick Vermeil would always talk to him on Saturday, the day before the game, and tell him, hey, Stan Walters is going to have trouble blocking the defensive end this week. Okay, now not everything we do can help Stan. So there's going to be plays in which he blocks one-on-one. You have to be aware of that. So Carson Wentz also has to be aware of, depending on the play call, what's happening with the offensive line. So if he knows that, hey, on this particular play, Jordan Mailata is going to be one-on-one, and he has to know that I can't hold the ball. If he doesn't see it, whatever play is called, if it's not there or he doesn't see it, he can't just stand there and stand there and stand there. Yeah. He has to understand how it all ties together.
And I think when you look at that, when you say, okay, you got Jordan out there, one of the things that they need to make sure that they don't get into is aborting the rules of protection. If you're saying that it's going to be a slide protection to the right, you need to stick to those rules. Right. Because if you mess around and you start trying to slide to Jordan to protect him, then now all the blitzes are going to come to the open side, and that's when
they'll know that real quick.
Yeah, they'll know that real quick. You need to handle this game exactly how you handle Aaron Donald, where you didn't always slide to him. You made sure, hey man, sometimes you're going to have to be mano a mano. Go handle him. I mean, you're in the league now.
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember observing from your breakdown on Inside in the Trenches with Trey Thomas on YouTube is, for a guy who's so massive and has these really long arms, right? Big, strong tree trunk legs. I felt like he didn't yet understand how to use that body and athleticism to drive guys, right? Is it because it's in his head? Or like you're saying, he doesn't have the understanding or the mean streak to just power up on a guy?
Well, because of his height, man. He's 6'8", at 6'8", you're going to struggle as a run blocker, so you have to understand the footwork that has to happen when you're talking about run blocking, and you have to be able to shoot your hands, the timing of it. So if you're out there and you don't really step through it, if it's let's say if we're running inside zone to the left, all right? So I'm going to go inside zone to the left. I'm working with Greg up to the linebacker, and our linebacker is red as light is right here, right? So it has to be a 3-step progression, where it's 1 step, 2 step, and then that 3rd step is what creates the power. So you have to have the space, and then the timing needs to be correct for it to happen. If not, if you take the wrong steps, then you end up getting bookend. You don't really create movement. So you
don't generate power.
You don't generate power.
To me, again, you played offensive line, so correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the movements to me are not normal athletic movements.
Yeah.
They have to be taught. People assume, oh, he's big, he's tall, and he's strong, and all that good stuff. They saw his rugby highlights, and they assume that automatically means that you can generate power as a run blocker or sit down and anchor as a pass blocker. Those are not natural athletic moves, to me anyway.
Yeah, they're techniques.
Yeah.
It's certainly not transferable from rugby, by the way.
Look, they're techniques that are taught, and they're repped and repped and repped, and the hope is, because they've been getting so many reps lately, as I understand it, that it'll show up in the games, but you're not going to know, as Trey was saying, until somebody comes at you. The way that Trey's describing the way that the techniques are taught, it's a little different. It's not like Juan Castillo taught us completely differently, right?
Yeah, it's totally different. Juan was big on counting. We knew, all right, you know what? If I have to go and cut a guy, I know that I'm going to take 4 steps. I'm going to cut off of my 4th step.
Right.
You're not guessing. It's once you open up, that's 1, 2, 3. Once that 3rd step comes, your 4th step is where you're cutting. You know what I'm saying? So, we were big into counting steps. We made counting big. It made it a lot easier when it comes to teaching it. It helps when it comes to, when you have to do double teams, to understand what footwork, what hip needs to be down so that you can create movement. But, it's a different ideology with Coach Stout, so hopefully, they pull it together.
Before we go on, I want to get into the wide receiver situation, but Adam, and we talked about this for a good 2 months of the offseason and into the preseason. I was big on cutting the core. I have the ultimate respect for JP, right? But if Joe Montana, if Tom Brady can go eventually get cut, anybody can be moved on from. I was personally in favor of moving on, because I felt like in the mindset of Howie and people who put the organization together, if you're going to go ahead with Andre Dillard, then you're going to wind up signing a veteran, maybe who's not 38, somebody who's played the position, who like a Jamon Brown is at guard. Maybe they could have found a tackle. But they didn't do that. They felt that they had JP who could play tackle in the event that Dillard got hurt, which happened. So does it now look like a mistake here to have brought JP back?
Well, okay, but with what you just said, we have to understand something. They had contact with Peter's agent for several months, but they were off on money. Everything was pointing towards Dillard, and then Brandon Brooks gets hurt.
Right.
And the Eagles were stuck because they just did not believe that Pryor was ready to be a starting guard for 16 games. They liked him as a fill-in guy, so they made a choice through communication between the agent and Peters. They thought, because Stoutland thought, the O-line coach, that he could play guard. I'll tell you what, I was not in favor of it, but what do I know? I'm told he was tremendous after the first week in training camp.
Who was?
Peters.
At guard.
As Todd Harriman's told us on Inside the Birds on our little TV thing that we do, Todd said he could do it. Okay, he was road grading. I think the people I spoke with were kind of surprised at how good he was so quickly. And that plays to your point in that, okay, what are you going to do at left tackle? They weren't willing to go to Mailata. They were forced to go to Mailata today. That's where they're at with him. And
Right.
we'll see how he does.
This feels like a great debate coming up for Tales from the Blind Side with Trey Thomas, Todd Hermans, and former Eagles center Jamal Jackson, which is on the Inside Birds YouTube channel, because you saw, when we talked to Todd about it, you saw it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And Todd even admitted during our interview with us on our little YouTube thing, as Adams called it, that he said he's giving JP the benefit of the doubt because he's such a fan. So he admitted a little bit of bias. He just felt like if someone was going to do it, JP would be able to do it. But I know you had concerns about just durability, even playing guard with all the traffic in there and the movement.
Absolutely. When you're saying that you have a knee issue, you can see that JP is favoring his right knee. All right, because of me, with being at left tackle, your right knee is your leg that you're pushing off of a lot. It absorbs most of your contact. I have to have my right knee replaced right now, just from wear and tear and just playing that position. Always being in the left-handed stance. So now you're going to take him and put that outside leg outside. Now he has to plan on that and have to change direction. I knew his right knee wasn't up to par. Now I heard totally different when he was in camp. I heard that it wasn't as sweet as that he was getting worked over a couple times. When you're looking at Fletcher Cox and you're looking at some of these defensive tackles that were going to go full speed on him. Now, if you got a guy that's not going to really challenge him in practice, and yeah, it's going to look, but when you're saying, all right, you never saw him do any one-on-ones. Mm-hmm. You never saw him do any teams in these in any of these scrimmages.
He missed a couple of weeks too, I believe.
Absolutely.
With an injury,
like if it was like that, if he was out there dominating, why didn't you showcase that in these pass pros, in these one-on-ones? Why didn't you showcase that in these team periods? But you didn't see that. So now you put him in a situation where, he comes back. It just doesn't look good when you come back and you ask for more money and then, you go down like this.
I'll say one thing, though. If Mailata plays well, because Peters has got to be missed at least 3 games by the IR rule, if Mailata plays well, I think they would stick with him because they need to figure out who this kid is in the future. Next year is the final year of his rookie deal. This is a perfect opportunity to stay with it, let him play, don't pull him, and see what happens.
All right, let's get into someone who is playing well for the Eagles. I know it's hard to imagine on offense, but there is someone who's kind of stepping up, and that is Greg Ward, the second-year wideout. He led all Eagles. This was shocking to me last week with 11 targets, caught 8 passes, 72 yards, a touchdown. There was one play I felt he had his man beat, Greg, we were talking about before the touchdown, and I don't think Carson saw him open on the right side. It looked like the cornerback was looking into the backfield, and Greg Ward got open. So opportunity there for more. He shows he can get open. A lot of people know his story.
Means a lot here.
Yeah. He's a former quarterback at Houston. He spent multiple training camps with the Eagles, 2017, 2018. Then he went to the AAF, right? Then he comes back, gets elevated in the middle of last year from the practice squad, and becomes a big part of what they did in December. So when you look at his body of work, although limited, it seems like Carson is at least willing to trust him and throw him the ball.
Well, I know the play you're talking about, the play you mentioned. It wasn't that he missed him. The Bengals ran kind of a trap concept, and they did a good job with it. So Carson read it as man, and the corner, he figured he was going to run with Ward, and the corner trapped, so he threw it to Ertz. I think it was 3rd down.
Yeah, on the right side. Yeah, threw it to Ertz.
And then he hit him for the touchdown later, which was a different coverage. Which was actually Wentz's best play of the game mentally, because they spun their coverage at the snap to cover 2. And Wentz read it immediately and knew that was the outside void because there's the whole shot's there in cover 2. That was Wentz's best play mentally.
Yeah.
But Ward is a guy that he clearly is comfortable throwing the ball to. He's done a nice job on those little slant routes of taking the stem just vertical enough to create separation with the corner to provide a space for the throw. So he's done a nice job. But he's their number one wide receiver right now. And no matter how much you like Greg Ward, he's not a number one wide receiver. And I like what I've seen of him, but he's not that guy.
I want to ask you about the play where I assumed it was a miss because he was open on the right side. And yes, he did throw it to Zach Ertz.
Right.
It was a completed pass, I believe, short of the sticks.
It was, and they
on
kicked the
third
field
down.
goal. Yeah.
When you watch it, he's looking in that direction, clearly on the short and not
Right,
the long.
but they showed a man look, and again, you can debate this forever, but they showed a man look. So what happened is if I'm not mistaken, and so Carson threw it to Ertz on the little quick out, the stick route, and the corner kind of trapped and dropped off. Sure. And therefore made the tackle for a 5 or 6 yard gain on 3rd and 8.
Right.
So
Carson's
Ward
expecting
looks
the corner to ride
yeah,
up the field.
right,
and,
correct.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know because he had time if maybe the vision could have been there though for him to see that what the defense he thought was going to be there was not
maybe
there.
if he's playing sharper mentally overall, maybe that happens. But that one I'm not going to put on him because I don't know how that's coached in that situation. And when you don't know how something's coached, I don't want to go there.
Do you think, Trey, when you look at what the Eagles can do today, are they going to be more of an 11 personnel team and just kind of throw the receivers they got out there, or do they go Zach Ertz and Richard Rodgers and try to continue to be a 12 personnel team and still be undermanned and not really what they want?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to go 11 personnel.
Do you really?
Yeah, because I mean, you know, what are you going to do?
You don't have Goddard. Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you don't.
Yeah, you bringing in a receiver to try to have him down there and tight end. That takes away all the run play stuff. So now you're going to put Ertz in a situation where you're going to be running all the zone runs to Ertz. I think you're going to go more of a 11 personnel and let's go have at it.
Do you think in 11 personnel you might see more Richard Rodgers over Ertz when they want to run, or does that telegraph?
Well, they've been telegraphing already when you get J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in there. You're not running him on any deep routes. You're going to try to put all the run plays to him. So, I mean, I think they're going to try to mix it up, even if you can spread them out a little bit and you run some draws, some inside stuff. You saw a couple of, change-ups in run games against Cincinnati where you ran a couple of misdirections where you have tackles and guards pulling one side, then you're running outside zone to the other side, So, but when you're saying, all right, let's get down in a traditional tight end down next to the tackle, what you might run away from him, I guess, run outside zone away, inside zone away, use Ertz to try to get up to that linebacker or whoever that you're going to put in there to get up to that backside linebacker or safety or whatever and rely on those combination blocks to get to where they need to be.
So Arcega-Whiteside is doubtful, and the inactives will be out in about 45 minutes, so we'll find out if he can even get on the field. Deshaun's out, Jalen Reagor is out, and if Arcega-Whiteside can't play, what does their 11 personnel look like? Is Greg Ward now moved to the outside? Oh,
yes, so here it is. Ward
could
play. But Ward, they got 4 guys. Ward, Hightower could run, who we know also played slot in training camp, but he's better outside. But he's also not strong, so you worry about that. Deontay Burnett. Greg, where does Burnett, do you remember him? Was he a Z?
I remember him really well. He was a slot guy at USC.
Okay.
He was Darnold's slot guy. He's kind of works inside, is very good at finding voids and zone.
Okay.
That's what he is.
Okay.
And then Fulgham is an outside receiver. He's just under 6'3", he's long and could run, but the guy's barely played. This is the problem with the 4. Hightower's a rookie. Burnett is a second-year player, has not played very much. Fulgham's been out on 3 teams.
You're talking about Burnett, Hightower, and Ward.
Yeah.
That's
Burnett,
what you're looking
Hightower, and Ward.
Yep.
Right.
Who's the X in that trio?
Hightower.
Hightower. Okay.
He's played X this year.
Yeah, he has
Okay.
in spots. So Hightower at X, Ward in the slot, Burnett Z,
Well,
or
Ward can
Ward
be
Z
outside
and-
too. Yeah.
Man,
He has done it.
this is rough. I mean,
Yeah.
are we not
it's gonna
sure
be
12
hard.
personnel might not just be better because at
exactly.
least Rodgers and Ertz have been in the league
But
for a while?
But what Trey just said is really true. You're asking Zach Ertz to do things that he's not going to be great at.
Right.
He's so good at finding space in zones and sitting down and catching the football. Richard Rodgers, who was a guy that in college was highly thought of, has become a blocking tight end. That's all they have here, Jeff. They're down in pass targets. I know Greg said the Niner linebackers are really good. I agree with that. But if you're the Eagles coaches, you've got to find a way to get Sanders the football.
Right.
With all these pass targets out, he is so explosive. He's a really good route runner. And also, the Eagles tell me he's really much better in pass protection. Get him on the field, get him in space, and make a play.
That's what we call in this business a good tease, because we're about to go into a little segment on Miles Sanders. Ever since missing the first week, he has come back, played 2 games, had 100 total yards in both games. If you remember last year, as Adam was alluding to, when the Eagles were down at wide receiver and when they were hurting, they turned Miles Sanders into a multi-dimensional weapon who was catching passes and doing what he can do.
Don't forget, they did that last week when he was split out, and they got him matched on Davis Gaither, and Carson missed him. I mean, but as I said, you don't go into a game saying, well, my quarterback's going to miss throws. So they're trying to do that with him. That's part of what they do with Sanders.
How much can he do more, though? I mean, he's had over 100 yards.
I mean, you're not going to give him the ball 35 times.
Well, that's my point, is that they haven't been
more pass routes, More pass routes, Jeff. Yeah, I would say more pass routes, but he's done all he can do for missing 4 weeks. It's just a matter of, it's on the coaches tonight, Jeff. And I understand they're down in pass targets. I get it. No Alshon, no Goddard, who looked like he was going to have a breakout season. No Jackson, no Alshon, but you know what? You have what you have. Figure it out. That's your job. Figure it out. This is really tough. Hey, it's not like they haven't done this before. You see the Final 4 games last season?
Yeah.
When he's thrown to street free agents, this is what they have again.
Yeah, and just real quick on Miles Sanders, we're going to go through his stats because they've been pretty impressive. 38 rushing attempts, 190 rushing yards. That's an average of 5 yards per carry. That's in the upper third of the NFL. 7 catches, 48 yards. As Greg alluded to, it could be 8 catches, 9 catches, 10 catches.
Well, it should have been a 53-yard touchdown.
Yeah, he could have well over 100 yards receiving, but he still has the 8th most receiving yards. I'm sorry, his 5-point yards per carry is 8th best in the NFL among running backs with at least 35 carries. He's doing his job. He's getting open. I guess what I wonder is this. Doug Peterson brought up fatigue with him last week, and we know he missed a lot of time in training camp, and yet he's not using Corey Clement and Boston Scott a whole lot. When you look at tonight's game, if the guy is getting fatigued, yet he's one of your best weapons, do you got to rely a little bit more on Boston and Corey? I know it's not going to be a committee. We know that that's over,
especially Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to mix them in, but I think Miles, he sets up the blocks a lot better. He's a lot more patient. And then when he does hit the hole, he takes it and he makes something happen. But I think you're going to have to lean on your other running backs just a little bit to kind of give them a spell, especially when he just came up a couple days where he missed, where there was a glute injury, so he was butthurt this week. So
he was butthurt. That's correct.
He was butthurt. I mean, so yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
That would be a great segue into our Manscaped segment, but we still have a few minutes before we get to
by the
that.
way, real quick, I want to shout out to Gary Scottish Eagle on Twitter, who saw me drinking one of these Goose Island IPAs. He says he wants one all the way over in Scotland, I guess.
We toast all of our viewers.
Miles and miles
America
and time zones away.
Or
Shout
time
out to
zones
you.
away. Salute. Are you surprised, Greg, by the lack of usage at all for Boston and Corey over the last 2 weeks?
I mean, I think Miles Sanders is clearly your number 1 back, and he's far and away your best back. The question is, you go forward with Miles Sanders, and I know they drafted him in the 2nd round, and I loved him coming out of college. He came out the same year as Josh Jacobs. I thought he was the 2nd best back in the draft. Is what you ultimately saw him as, and what is he in the league? My guess is he's not quite, to use an old term, a bell cow back, a guy you can give it to 20, 22 times a game. I'm not quite sure he's that guy. I think the Eagles are probably a little nervous about that.
Is that because of, like, he's a shorter guy? I mean, they had no hesitation giving it to B. West, even with the knee injuries, before that really did him in, 18 to 20 times a game if they needed to.
Yeah, but B. West never had 280 carries in a season.
No, but he also...
he would have touches, though.
That's but the touches, he over a 3-year span, averaged over 24 touches per game. But yeah, Greg's right. You're not giving him 20 carries. He's small.
Not carries.
Right,
yeah.
right. But
touches,
total touches.
Touches, right.
Miles Sanders, if they're in any game, should never get fewer than 20 touches.
Right.
He's that dynamic and explosive. And the one thing, Jeff, was interesting. You and I were doing our show last year, and we were talking about how we weren't sure about Sanders in the pass game because he wasn't asked to do it very much. He's been so dynamic and explosive. Every game they should go in saying, we're getting this guy out in space.
Right.
He's that good. He's a mismatch. As good as those linebackers are, you got to do it.
Yeah, getting back to what Trey said, I feel if the Eagles can reprise an effective screen game today, they stand a chance because you can get big plays out of that. It's the great equalizer sometimes. You spring a guy for a 50, 60-yarder, and then all of a sudden you get your momentum going. But they've got to be able to execute that.
But I think even if you're not going to run the screen game, look for him in routes when that blitz doesn't come. Once he checks his read, when he gets out in the backfield and he gets into his routes, if you have time, look for him. You know, because when we went back over the Rams game, had many times he was missed. You know, I think that if it's not the screen game, look for him in certain routes just because you know that he can get open if he has a linebacker covering him.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll have to watch that. I think Miles Sanders' progression, though, at least tells us one thing, right? Adam, we talked about it a lot on Inside the Birds. We were adamant. People argue with us. The RBBC is over. I mean, they've got themselves their 3-down running back, their multi-dimensional West Coast-style franchise back.
I do want to add this, though. When we reported first back in, I don't know, whenever that was, May, that they really wanted Carlos Hyde, it was not to be in a committee. It was they wanted an answer if Miles Sanders got hurt. They wanted someone who was established. Hyde was coming off his first 1,000-yard season. They just wanted to turn to someone. We now know Boston Scott cannot be that guy. I think it's obvious. He's a good change-up. You could use him on 3rd down, but he's not a starting running back for 5-6 games to be. That's what they've learned so far.
All right. True or false? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, keep one thing in mind for this year, too. They planned on going into this year with explosive speed at the wide receiver position. As good as Sanders is, and I think we all like Miles Sanders a lot, I don't think they saw him as being the #1 guy in the offense in terms of, oh, we better get the ball to him because now you have no one else.
Right.
They did not see this season being that way.
Right.
It's played out that way.
Right.
But I don't think, they went into this season believing they had explosive. This was before, COVID became the big issue when Goodwin opted out. And they anticipated having explosive speed at the wide receiver position.
Right. Well, I mean, let me ask you this, though. If as it relates to tonight's game.
Right.
If you're Robert
That's where we are now.
Yeah. If you're Robert Saleh, aren't you saying, I'm not letting Zach Ertz beat me, and if anybody else can beat me, good luck to you? Like, I'm going to put guys on Ertz, and then dare anybody else, Miles Sanders included, to beat me?
Well,
in the passing game.
Yes and no, because I don't think Ertz, and again, one could make the argument that to the Eagles, Zach Ertz is George Kittle, even though they're not the same guy, but to the Eagles he is. But Ertz is not an explosive player. So you could say, yeah, I don't want Zach Ertz going 12 for 140, but he's also not likely to catch a 50-yard touchdown.
Right. All right. Who wants to talk about male grooming? Trey Thomas does, I know that.
Number 72.
All right, we're going to get into our ever-famous and popularity-growing Manscaped Man of the Game segment where we all pick our Manscaped Man of the Game. I'm going to start this one off tonight and say the Manscaped Man of the Game has got to be Jordan Mailata. I think we're going to learn a lot about him tonight, either positive or negative, but certainly if he's not even close to being up to task, that could wreck the entire offense. We alluded to that with the infamous Winston Justice game, and a lot of the stage is similarly set tonight, but you got to hope that Jordan Mailata can hold his own. And again, the guy next to him is not like a 7-year veteran either with Nate Herbig, so a lot of attention on the left side of the Eagles' offensive line, starting with Jordan Mailata. Greg, who is your Manscaped Man of the Game?
That would be Darius Slay.
D. Slay. All right. Why so?
This was a tough one. I mean, I could have picked a number of people. I think their pass defense will be absolutely critical. I could be wrong, I don't think Slay will travel with anyone tonight. So I think that he'll play however they want to structure their pass defense. I think that he'll be on whatever side that is, because I don't think he'll travel with Debo or Brandon Ayuk, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Has he been traveling for most of the games?
He traveled with McLaurin.
Okay.
Who'd they just play?
Played the Bengals.
Oh, he did
Bengals?
Travel at times with A.J. Green.
Okay.
Not every snap.
Gotcha.
Real quick, though, with what Adam reported at the start of the show, that Jalen Mills is going to move back outside. And if we're going to pick out one deficiency in Jalen Mills' game is he cannot run. Would it maybe be smarter, Jim, to put Darius Slay on Ayuk and really take their one speed threat out of the game?
Well, Ayuk does have speed. He's a more explosive player than Debo in terms of, let's say, route running and catch and run. But he's playing his second game in the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The other side is Kendrick Bourne, right? Who's a nice player.
Well,
but
Kendrick
a-
Bourne,
receiver.
yeah, Kendrick Bourne's a nice player.
Right.
He's probably a better version of Greg Ward, but he's better than that because he's been a receiver for a long time.
Let me ask you the obvious. Darius Slay on Kittle, is that a complete mismatch?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that a
people would
bad
ask us
idea?
that, Greg. What about that?
Ooh, I don't know. I guess it could happen at times. If
Okay.
the Eagles have played the second most snaps of man coverage in the NFL this year. Cover one, by the way. They've played the second most snaps in the NFL. They've kind of evolved with Slay into a man coverage defense. Now, that could change with Jalen Mills playing corner. Jalen Mills is, to me, not a great man corner. I think he's a much better zone corner. So that could be the case tonight. They could play a lot more zone.
Adam, who is your Manscaped man of the game?
Well, it is the aforementioned George Kittle because he is back from his knee injury, and he is the most complete tight end in the National Football League. Because they're down on some pass targets at wide receiver, they're going to get him involved. He is an awesome screen catcher. He's kind of like Tyler Higbee when he hides behind the line and gets upfield, but he's really athletic. I mean,
You just made every Eagles fan
I know.
See, I was
shudder
under
at
the
mention
impression
of
that it
Tyler
had to be
Higbee.
an Eagle.
no, oh no,
why
oh
I
no,
didn't realize
yeah.
that.
See, oh now you know.
Because I would have,
No,
I wouldn't
didn't
have
I
picked
use-
Darius Slay
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I thought it had to be an Eagle.
Well, who would you use if you had a 49er?
I might have picked Kittle because I
Okay.
think that he's a really, really difficult matchup.
How so in terms of matchup?
Well, Kittle, not only is he the best,
We
he's
have a
good at
segment
blocking
for this later, but go
tight
ahead.
end,
Okay. All right,
but Kittle happens to be very explosive too.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people may not realize. You look at someone like O.J. Howard. They came out the same year in the draft, and everybody spoke about Howard from Alabama, how explosive he was. All of Kittle's measurables at the combine were better than O.J. Howard's. He's an explosive athlete.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into the little Kittle versus Ertz matchup a little bit later in the show, but we must get the Manscaped man of the game from Mr. Manscaped himself. Take
I
it away,
can't
Trey.
believe this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm going with Nate Gary. I think.
Wait,
that-
whoa!
Nate Gary, he has to come out and play,
Breaking news,
man.
hashtag.
Come on, man.
Why?
The white snake, man. He has come on, baby. Let's go.
I'm done with
I
this
need
show.
him to play with discipline. I mean, to play with controlled eyes. I mean, you need our linebackers to go out there and play a little bit better. I mean, come on. If we're going to pull this game off, you got Kittle that's going to be a problem out there. So these linebackers are going to have to be able to come out there and play, recognize what's going on with the defense, not allow the quarterbacks to work them with their eyes. But to me, it needs to be Nate Gary and our linebacker.
Is this going to be Nate Gary's last game as an Eagles linebacker?
Come on, man. Hey, you can't shake the snake.
They have no one else. Where else are they going to go?
Speaking of you can't shake the snake, why don't you tell us about Manscaped?
Hey, man, so Manscaped, who is our one of our sponsors here. A lot of people have been asking, like, which way do you start with this? So you have the perfect package. The perfect package 3.0 is one of the packages that they have for Landscape. And what's included in this package is, you have the lawnmower, the new and improved redesigned lawnmower 3.0, which comes with a longer lasting battery, a redesigned quiet stroke technology motor, 7,000 RPM motor, and now they have an LED light, which illuminates the grooming area when you're talking about trimming your undercarriage. Also, they have Manscaped boxers. All right, the boxers are they are the ones that's going to house your family. Your Jews need a house. They need a garage. So the boxers are there.
You're right. Now that you think about it, I didn't know that. That's interesting. All right, I'm gonna let the people know
The
about
boys need to have a house, man, the garage. So there's boxes there that features microfiber blend design to keep the high friction in the areas cool. Your balls will thank you with the boxers. All right. So now you also have the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant that is specifically for men's moist, sensitive region. This deodorant helps to create an anti-chafing barrier and provide freshness below the waist. They also have the Crop Reviver, which is a ball toner and refresher, which is a sprayer. It's a mister. You spray, you mist.
Yeah.
But you know what? What it is it just creates a soothing aloe, and it's made with witch hazel as well to try to kind of helps, keep you fresh. And they also have some magic mats. So when you get into grooming, that you have somewhere to kind of collect your hair or whatever, so that you don't just leave a mess in the bathroom. So man, when you go to manscaped.com, check out the perfect package. They have everything for you there. So, hey, go to manscaped.com, use promo code TRA, T-R-A, for 20% off on your purchase.
There you go.
All right, you heard it from Trey. You know, the best part of that Manscaped read is as I look around here at the awesome Goose Island Brew House, everybody's still here, so that's good.
I checked first to make sure there weren't any kids out there, so they wouldn't be like, Mom, that's balls.
Yeah, but they're hearing it right there.
All right, on the big screen. Listen, by the way, if you come out to Goose Island Brew House, it's on the big screen. You got the sound. You can watch the show. Even though you can't be in here with us, you can be around these lovely people drinking your Goose Island Fly PA IPA, sponsored by the Eagles, right? They're Eagles beer, and watching us on the big screen outside. So everybody come by. We'll be here every Sunday, or Monday if the Eagles are playing Monday, or Thursday if the Eagles are playing Thursday. And we'll see, based on some news this week, if the NFL is actually going to be playing week after week. Actually, I want to actually ask you guys about that really quickly before we get into our next segment. Do you have a concern right now about the ability of the NFL to make it to the finish line, Greg?
I think they'll make it to the finish line when all's said and done, for sure. But it just depends on, I guess, how many games get played. And I know it's been reported, so I'm not speaking out of school, that there'll be a big conference call tomorrow, I think, with the commissioner and owners and GMs and coaches. And I'm sure protocols will be tightened, however they can be tightened. This is not my area, believe me. Mm-hmm. But they will do everything they can to make sure that football is played.
Trey, do you think players would buy in right now to not a bubble concept in a city, but a bubble hotel where everybody's got to stay in a hotel, and there's nothing left to be doubted there if that happens?
If you want to make all 17 checks?
Yeah,
you'll do whatever you need to do to make sure you can get those 17 checks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the NFL says you're doing it, they'll do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you want to make these 17 checks,
the NFLPA will have to sign off.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do it.
They have to agree to it.
Yeah, right. Just so that you can go out there and finish out the season. I don't think players would fight it.
I guess what I wonder, Adam, is that the NFL put the protocols in place and they expanded the rosters. They did everything they could, probably assuming there were going to be some guys
16-man practice squad.
That tested positive, and then all of a sudden it's like the game's got to be shut down or postponed. Didn't they anticipate?
Well, that's what everybody
like
said with baseball after the first week too, and it went on. So
yeah, I would say I felt the
baseball's
NFL,
different, obviously.
Yeah, but even just like the NFL gave you the taxi squad and then your alternate site guys who were AAA. But NFL gave you the ability to sign veterans like Josh McCown to your practice squad.
Right.
They really went above and beyond.
They did. They try to anticipate everything. But the one big issue is you've got, when you're taking testing, you get your temperature taken, okay? Everybody gets that. If you work for an NFL team, no matter who you are, you get that. Then you get the COVID test. But the problem is they're not getting the test back immediately. There's a lag time. So those people are going to the building, though they have to wear a mask. They could actually have it be asymptomatic and somehow give the virus to somebody else. But if you keep your mask on, the belief is it shouldn't happen. I could just tell you, talking to coaches and executives, everyone's doing what's right. But when you're bringing people in the building that have it, that's a concern. And how they're giving it to somebody else, nobody knows. And the other thing is, Jeff, what happens to the players and coaches when they go home?
Right.
Who are they around?
Right.
That's another issue.
Right. Well, when we saw that the Raiders had kind of a mishap, right, where somebody was in their locker room.
And the Titans might, look, 18 to 20 people right now, coaches and executives and also other people in the building. This is the breakout that they were hoping they would not have.
Right.
That was the one issue when I talked to the league back in June. They said they were going to have a season no matter what, but they worried about a breakout, and here we go. And let's just hope whatever happens in this call tomorrow, the protocols are still stringent and everybody does their part so we can finish the season.
All right, let's get back to the Eagles game, the tight end matchup that we were talking about with George Kittle of the 49ers, one of the best players, if not the, I believe PFF called him last year the number one. They had him rated as the number one player in the game, which is, not that everything is gospel, but that just shows you how they feel about him.
That must feel awesome. You can just be like, you know what, you see that? Look at my body of work. I am the number one player.
Was PFF around when you played?
I don't know.
No. Well, when he played, there was no internet.
I know Evan Mathis was there, the number one guard one year. And, we love Evan, but
couple years running.
Yeah.
Kittle will play for the first time since the season opener. He had 4 catches for 44 yards, suffered a knee injury. I always wonder this, when a guy comes back from a knee injury, right, a skill position guy, you might know something a little bit about that, Trey. I know you're not a skill position guy, but it's usually they're not always 100%. So are you wondering if Kittle right now is going to be as explosive as he normally is?
I think they're going to check him out. They'll see where he is, but you're not going to put him out there in a situation that you know that he could possibly get hurt even worse. Mm-hmm. So I think they feel comfortable enough to put him out there and let him go ahead and play his game.
Right, okay. Obviously, he's the big weapon, and really, for them, he's like I don't want to say their bell cow tight end, but doesn't the offense kind of revolve, Greg, around what he does and the matchups that he can create? Or is that a little too heavy?
I wouldn't say the Niner offense is built that way. I mean, I think the Niner offense is built, well, first of all, as we said earlier in the show, they're a base personnel offense.
Right.
Okay. The run game is, and what it does to a defense and how it creates conflict for certain players is how they start their offense. What Kyle Shanahan is really, really good at is isolating players who have run-pass responsibilities, who have both a run and a pass responsibility, like a linebacker. Now, when you play out of 21 personnel or 12 personnel, they tend to play out of 21 a lot because Kyle Juszczyk is a really good fullback. There's more players in the box usually who have run and pass responsibilities. That makes Kittle a very effective weapon within the context of their offense. Now, he'd be an effective weapon in any offense, but this is how they scheme it up, and it makes him really effective.
How would you compare his skill set to Zach Ertz's skill set and what they bring to their respective offense?
Well, he's a much more explosive athlete than Zach Ertz, and he's a better run blocker. Zach Ertz is a great route runner at the short intermediate areas and normally has great hands. Zach Ertz is not an explosive run after catch player. Kittle is an explosive run after catch player.
Perhaps with Zach being more of a polished route runner, he's been able to keep himself fairly healthy over the last few years. We've seen guys who are more contact-oriented, even including his own teammate, Dallas Goedert, who invites a lot of contact, will bowl through it, but he's now had to miss games over this year, last year, and even in training camp with different, the broken thumb, there was the calf last year, now it is I believe the ankle. What is he got right now?
Fractured ankle.
The fractured ankle, is that a byproduct of the way he plays the position?
I mean, sometimes you're going to get tackled a certain type of way with the ankle. I mean, it wasn't anything that looked like he was doing anything like extra. It was just the way that the guy fell on his ankle. Things like that are going to happen. But I think what you see a little bit this year is Ertz is protecting himself as well, too, where he's not extending over some of those plays that are coming across the middle, where you have some of those balls that are a little high that can get him lit up. He's kind of like, no, I got to protect myself.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the future is somewhat uncertain for Zach Ertz. He's got 2 years left on the deal, including this year, but the guaranteed money is up. Dallas Goedert could feasibly be extended after this year. The Eagles could go back to being an 11 personnel team, a one tight end team. There's a whole lot that's been going on, and Zach Ertz has certainly spoke about it. There was a report of him having a discussion with Howie Roseman about it before a game. He even talked about it this week. He met with the media this week for the first time since that report came out. He talked about whether or not the whole contract situation was weighing on him, and he had some interesting things to say. So let's hear right now from Zach Ertz earlier this week.
During the week, I don't think about it, honestly. I have my process from Monday to get ready for the game on Sunday. I do the same thing each and every week. And so as long as my process is consistent, my mind is always in a good place going into the games. Very detailed from the time we finish the game on Sunday to the time we kick off that following week. So for me, it's just part of the process. I don't think about it, all the external stuff going on. Don't even have conversations about it, honestly. I just Wednesday base game plan, Thursday third down, Friday red zone, and a bunch of body work and treatment in between. So for me, it's just about the process. How can I be the best football player each and every Sunday, and have that singular focus of trying to win a football game.
Well, that was Zach Ertz talking about how he goes about his preparation normally, even with the contract situation hovering over him. Adam, it's almost ironic that they're playing the 49ers this weekend, and we're discussing this because indirectly George Kittle factors in. He signed the contract. He reset the market for tight ends.
By far.
And you reported during the offseason, and you and I were out, and we were doing our homework, that there was not going to be any movement on Zach Ertz's deal until George Kittle signed.
Yeah.
And then George Kittle signed, and then Travis Kelce signed. So where does that leave the situation as it is right now?
They're still, from the Eagles' standpoint, they have a dilemma. You outlined very well where they're at with Dallas Goedert. They could extend his contract after the season. So if they're willing to do that, how do you pay Zach Ertz? Who pays two tight ends? This is what you and I talked about in our NFL Combine show. It's just not done. The only time we can remember in the last 10 years or so was Aaron Hernandez and Gronk. Gronk signed a landmark contract, $10 million a year, back in 2012. Austin Hooper got paid $10.5 million. Then Kittle gets $15 million and reset the market by far. So if you're Zach Ertz and Steve Carrick's agent, you probably want to get around $13 million a year. The Eagles really don't want to do that. They want to give him something like Kelsey's deal. Well, Kelsey is in a different category here. Yeah, he's around Zach's age, he's just a tad older. But that deal gave him very little guaranteed money in the future, very team-friendly, and Zach's not willing to do it. So both sides, Jeff, are at loggerheads, and they don't have a middle ground right now. Well, that's kind of where they're at.
I'm pretty sure you're the only one that reported this in the offseason. Didn't the Niners make an attempt at signing Austin Hooper?
Yes, they are.
So you ask who pays two tight ends?
Yeah, they did. They were not close to $10.5 million, I'm told.
Correct.
They were probably somewhere around $8 million. But that's still, for a backup tight end, Kittle's the guy. Like, Kittle's the best tight end in football by far. No offense to anyone else. But that tells you something. And that's why, by the way, Kyle Shanahan brought in Jordan Reed, because he wanted an athletic move tight end. Not that Kittle's not, he is. But Reed's a different type of tight end, and that tells you why he wanted Hooper. It's interesting.
How much, Trey, I mean, everybody who played for the Eagles during your era had something going on with upstairs in the contract and their agent and this, that, and the other. And everybody to a man would say, I focus on football, the contract is the contract, but you lived through it. So is it easy to just put your contract? I mean, you just mentioned that maybe Zach is kind of protecting himself out there. So it's got to be on the mind a little bit.
Absolutely, because you don't want to mess around, and especially if the team is showing that they don't want to make this investment in you right now. So you don't want to make sure that you don't get injured. The man just played through a ruptured spleen last season. I mean, where he's put his body on the line for this organization. So when you say, okay, you know what, we don't want to give you the contract that you feel that you deserve, then all right, then we're cool. But you know what, I need to protect myself a little bit to make sure that if things do not progress the way I think they are during the offseason, that I'm not coming out of it in surgery.
I would also add that, remember, Ertz has done right by the club. He's restructured his contract 3 times. The last time, I'm told, he was reluctant to do it. The Eagles talked to him about doing the right thing for the club, but he was promised they would give him the kind of contract that he wanted. He's not looking to get Kittle's contract. No, there's 0 chance he would get it. He's not as good as Kittle. We know that. But if you could give us something in between, which again, $12.5, $13 million per season. The key year, though, Jeff, is not next year. It's 2022. They're not going to cut him in 2021. And that's what Zach wants to know. He's going to be on the field for 2 more years, and the Eagles are not willing to do that right now.
Too early to tell, but if nothing is done with Zach Ertz's contract, is he playing next year?
Well, he's got 2 years left. I mean,
next year would be his last year, though.
No, he's signed through. Is he finished at 21 or 22?
This is
21.
Year 1
okay, 21.
But what I'm asking you is, does he say, all right, fine, I'm not getting my money, I'm going to play, or does he get out?
He'll play, but it'll be interesting. The question would be, if you're his agent, do you ask for a trade? I'm not his agent. I have no idea what he's thinking, but I know the way it works. You've got this young tight end. Zach has been a Pro Bowler. He'll be the most prolific tight end in team history by far. Unbelievable for the community, and he's in the twilight of his career. He wants one more deal to make sure he gets guaranteed money that'll keep him on the roster for at least a couple more years, and he doesn't have that deal, so we'll see what happens. It's a dilemma.
I've always said the Eagles are in a rough situation here for 2 reasons. One, the successor, Dallas Goedert, if that's what they wanted to go do, is hurt a lot. And so if he were to get hurt and you don't have Zach Ertz anymore, now you're really stuck. Number 2, if you decide you want to go back to being a 3-wide, 1-receiver team, you need to have 3 wide receivers. We're here in week 4, and they haven't learned anything about their young receivers yet. And I know that there's still 13, 14 weeks left to go. We'll see. But all the injuries they're having, Jalen Reagor's not going to be dressing up for another 6 weeks, maybe. It's tough. Like, I don't know how they make this decision.
Oh, in terms of going 11 versus 12?
Yeah, if they want to be on 11.
That's probably the number one question when you evaluate Goddard and Ertz for the future. What do you want to do? Because if you extend Ertz, we know Goddard's going to be here a long time. That's my feeling from talking to the Eagles about him. So it's hard, man. I understand completely where the Eagles are. It's a very, very, very unique, tough problem to deal with. And then, by the way, the cap could drop by 15 to 20 million, down to 175 million, which nobody wants.
Well, just to give you guys an idea, especially the people watching at home, about how dominant Ertz and Kittle have been since the start of 2017, In receptions, Ertz has 293. That's second. George Kittle, 220. That's third. Receiving yards, Ertz has 3,033, second in the league. Kittle right behind him with 2,989. Ertz has 23 touchdowns. That's second among tight ends. Kittle has 12. That's ninth. And Kittle averaging 13.59 yards per catch, fourth among NFL tight ends. Ertz, 10.35, 15th. So obviously, two guys who've been very, very instrumental to what their teams do offensively. Speaking of offense and the 49ers offense, we've got into a little bit of it. Greg, you've talked a lot about what they do. We need to talk about how the Eagles are going to counteract, or at least try to counteract, what the Niners do so well, because the Niners pretty much do it against whoever they want, regardless of the personnel on the other side. Obviously, the Rams, we saw a couple weeks ago, come in here and use misdirection, use play action, use certain concepts to get Jared Goff out of the pocket and get some guys in space, and it worked pretty well. I don't think anybody does that better than Kyle Shanahan, Greg.
Well, the Rams use motion more than any team in the league. And that's a critical piece of what they do, because motion changes run support, and they're a big run team. They did not run well last week with their backs. The Giants' D-line, believe it or not, dominated. Did you watch that, Trey? The Giants' D-line dominated the 49ers' O-line. Their running backs only gained 28 for 62. Big Dexter Lawrence was a dominant force last week against that 49ers O-line. So that is, Kyle Shanahan will not be happy about that this week as he prepared for tonight.
Right.
But they use motion more than any team. They're a base personnel offense more than any team. This is the way they play. But they really want to mess with your run support responsibilities. And because you're going to be in base, they want to put your linebackers in conflict, because linebackers always have both a run and a pass responsibility.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned conflict and Eagles linebackers in the same sentence, because that is a conflict for the city, not just for what San Francisco does. Linebacker play has really hurt the Eagles over the first few weeks, and we had Trey Thomas go back into the film room and break down exactly where all the breakdowns for the Eagles have been at linebacker. Let's take a look at that right now.
Today's focus is going to be on these two out linebackers, Nate Gary and TJ Edwards. So let's look at it. A lot of things that you're going to notice here is how they get manipulated by the quarterback's eyes. So this is just a two-receiver route that could have been a completion, but it was incomplete. But now look at how they start reading the quarterback's eyes, and then they get lost in the mix. Where's TJ going? You're supposed to be back here because Nate Gary has the running back out of the backfield, but then now you go to defend nobody, and it ends up being an incompletion. Now, it's good that Jalen Mills came on this blitz right here and got his hands on the throwing arm, because that would have been a big completion. All right, so now here we go again. We're moving on to another play line. Let's just check this out here. Now, they're coming in there reading the quarterback's eyes again, but they're out of position. Joe Burrow did a really good job of manipulating these guys right here, because take a look at this right here. Watch how Joe starts looking one way, they go one way, but now TJ Edwards, he doesn't even see the running back coming out of the backfield until it's too late. But you know what? The damage was already done, because bam, there it is right there, another completion. Here it is again from the backside. Look at them. Look how they're being manipulated. And then there, Joe just takes it over their head. All right, so now this play right here is all on Nate, because, I mean, you know, he needed to stay back. But just look at this right here. You're seeing your blitzers. All right, so now, Nate, get back into your zone. Get back to where you need to be. Trust your teammates. Another completion by Joe. So here we go. We're going to move on to another one here. Again, look at the linebackers and how they get manipulated by the eyes of the quarterback. Here it is again. I mean, you know, they just keep reading his eyes. Joe Burrow is just moving them where he wants to be and dropping dimes. Now, this next one here, this is, I don't even know what to say. Nate, come on, baby. You need to get where you need to be. Now, again, they play down. You come down. Here we go. Drop back. Here we go. Let's get back. But again, man, Joe Burrow just puts the ball exactly where it needs to be for a touchdown. All right, so this next play is all on TJ, man. Now, you have an offsides here. But, man, TJ, you have the back. But look at this. Oh, my God. Is that a screenplay? You mean screenplays actually still work in the NFL? Of course they do, not just for us, but that's not our focus. Our focus is linebacker play. So let's look at this play right here. I'm going to slow this down. You see when LeBlanc gets right here, he has anything coming out of the backfield. Nate, you have to drop back into that zone. Here we go again. Another two-receiver route completion. Frustrating, but here we go. Now, this is TJ Edwards here now, you know. This leads to our third and 15. Here we go now. Joe is out there scrambling around, but TJ, come on, baby. Don't get done like this right here. I mean, this is ridiculous. All right, luckily, the guy stepped out of bounds at some point, and you know what? It led to this 3rd and 15, the infamous picket fence. Oh, yeah, we're going to stop this play. Actually, we're going to do this. Oh, no, it's a little inside screen route. Oh, no, hey, somebody get him, somebody get him. You went from 3rd and 15 to what was that, like a 40, 50-yard game? My God, come on, man, somebody. The picket fence, I don't even know what to say about it.
Oh, someday somebody's going to write a book about that picket fence defense, Trey Thomas, under the Jim Schwartz regime, because I'm sure it's worked more often than not, but it's the times where they don't work that really stand out. But
you mean it wasn't meant to give up a 42-yard play to Gio Bernard?
Yeah, no.
That wasn't the design of it?
Breaking news. No.
Wow, I thought that was the plan.
They sure executed it well if that was the plan.
You know, when you look at some of the defense coordinators at times, and they have these grandiose ideas, you know, where you're like, all right, picket fence is it. It reminds me of 2014, I believe, and I was going to put this clip in there, but I felt like it's going too long. So we're playing Seattle, and Billy Davis was the defense coordinator at the time.
Yes.
And Billy D came in there, and he had these grease pens, and he was on the board. I had this amazing defense that I'm going to call, and when Seattle gets in this formation, we're going to put Carter Barron over the center, and we're going to have this defense the way it is. And I'm sitting in the back of the room like, that ain't gonna work. They're gonna call a run play right up the middle of it. Sure enough, we're 3rd and 15, and he calls this amazing defense, beast mode, right up the middle for 17 yards. I mean, you know, sometimes certain ideas are good for the grease board, but not good for field of play.
You also pointed out that the linebacker play in general, even when it's not the picket fence defense, it's just not been good. Guys have been in space. They look lost. They don't know their assignments. Like, we could talk about Doug and Jim needing to be more this, more that, but when you have guys who are completely out of position or overmatched.
Well, this is a linebacker week because, like I said, I think they'll be in a 4-3 unless they choose not to be, but I don't think they have enough people to, you know, in the secondary.
Right.
So I think they'll be in their 4-3 quite a bit. I think that, obviously, Nate Gary, you talked about some of the concerns with him, but I think Edwards will be an issue too in the pass game. You know, he's been playing in the nickel. He took the spot of Riley in the nickel, so they feel he's a better pass defender than Duke Riley. And Duke Riley is just a better pure athlete, but they must feel Edwards can execute the assignments better. But I think he's a guy that is another guy the bullseye will be on as far as the Niners are concerned.
Yeah, I was told that Edwards got more snaps than Riley against Cincinnati because they wanted to be bigger against the run. But I would imagine that since San Francisco was a base
that could be
team,
the case as
that
well.
The same thing would apply. But even in your film review, Trey, it looked like TJ was a little bit lost as well. At times.
They get confused. You can see that they're always in the backfield reading the quarterback's eyes. And if you have a quarterback that's not going to stare down where he's going, if he can look them off, then you know they're going to chase after wherever his head is going, and then now you could come back and come to the right over the top of them. I mean, there were several examples of where TJ he drops into whatever zone that he is reading the quarterback's eyes, and then he takes off and covering a side of the field that there aren't even any offensive players. You had 2 times that you had 2 receiver routes wide open on against us last Sunday.
Is it? I mean, they're coached. You have to think that they're coached throughout the week to know their assignments. So is this just choking? Is it lack of talent?
Why do offensive teams do this, though? Because it grabs the eyes of defenders. That's why they do it. Of course, guys are coached,
right?
You know, but you're playing the game at a very fast speed, and it's why teams use motion. It's why you watch the Chiefs. It's why Tyreek Hill constantly goes in different kinds of motions because it grabs the eyes of defenders. And in the NFL, as Trey knows, it takes half a beat, and you're out of position.
Here's what other teams tell me. Their linebackers lack instincts. The lack of instincts is the big reason why they struggle so much. Deception in disguise. The Rams game is the best example. Nate Gary had no which way. He had no idea where he was going. And I get Jim Schwartz covering for his guys. That's admirable. But if you wanted to get 3 good linebackers, these guys wouldn't be on the field. You just have what you have. They've got to get better. Ken Flagel loves Nate Gary. This is not a secret. He's a linebackers coach. And I get it. Nate Gary is fairly athletic, but he's a former safety. He's new to this position. Where are the guys that come off the bench to push these guys? They don't have any.
But
you have what you have.
It's why misdirection and deception have become parts of the NFL, not gimmicks anymore. They're parts of the NFL for good offenses.
With their injuries, is there some kind of package or personnel they can put out there that mitigates linebacker risk? But you just said they're probably going to have 3 linebackers out there for most of the game. If you're Jim Schwartz, you got to be thinking that this can't be my best personnel formation to have 3 guys, all of them who have struggled at times.
Yeah, but then
there.
who else do you put out? I mean, if you want to play big, a lot of teams now, defenses play what we call big nickel. They play with 3 safeties. But you have to have 3 safeties.
Right.
Who else are they putting out there?
As we mentioned, one of their safeties is now moving to
Will
corner.
Parks is the perfect guy for tonight, but he's not active.
Out.
Right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And then when you're in a situation, I mean, at some point you're going to have to go nickel. And then they've started where you saw against Cincinnati, where they came out there and they had 5 down linemen up front when they wanted to create some pressure. So again, you're going to have to rely on your linebackers. That's just, that's going to be part of it.
Jim Schwartz has come out and said the 2 toughest positions to play in the NFL when you're a rookie to learn is linebacker and safety. So they have a 3rd-round linebacker who has not gotten on the field. They have a 4th-round safety who I think has played a smattering of snaps, in Kevon Wallace. Did you check Kevon Wallace out much when he was in college? Did you feel like he would be able to at least get in at some point this year based on what you saw on his college?
Well, he's a very aggressive kid.
Yeah.
And he played downhill really well. The problem is he's not very big.
Right.
He plays like a big safety stylistically, but by NFL standards, he's not very big. So you have to decide then, what is he in the NFL? Can he become a starting safety, or is he a guy who becomes just a great core special teams player?
Yeah.
Because his style of play is physical, competitive. If you watch his tape at Clemson and you come away going, I love this kid. He's just not very big.
Right. This goes back to, again, the offseason where, like in the past, Howie has tried to have some veterans at certain spots. Last year, Fort, Sendejo. Years past, it was Steph Wisniewski on the offensive line. And this goes back to the talent versus depth issue, where in areas where they don't have established talent, they may have come-up guys. We'll have to see about Kevon Wallace, and we'll have to see about Davion Taylor, but they don't have that veteran, Adam, that can step in. And you've said for weeks now, it's amazing that teams don't challenge the Eagles linebackers even more than some teams already have.
Jerick Jet McKinnon is that guy tonight. He is the guy they're going to get out in space. I fully expect Kyle Shanahan to get him lined up on these linebackers. It's a perfect opportunity. He had a really nice play for a touchdown last week against the Giants. This is the guy. If I'm the Niners, and Jeff Wilson, by the way, more for power back, he's the guy who had 1 catch
He's
against
an interesting player.
He's the guy who had 1 catch against the Cardinals, had the game winner, Greg, as you remember last year.
They just roll him out, don't they?
What do you like about Jeff Wilson?
Well, that was a 0 blitz, and Garoppolo hit Wilson. Well, I watched Wilson come out of college. He has some speed. But also think about Kyle Juszczyk. He's a guy who doesn't necessarily get volume targets, but every couple of weeks, and maybe it's tonight, they line up in some form of the I formation, whether it's straight I or whether it's an offset I, and they show an ISO lead run, okay? And what happens is, because linebackers have run responsibilities first, they step up and they run Juszczyk on a wheel route. And they'll do that. And Juszczyk catches 30, 40-yard passes sometimes. That's what I'm saying. They attack players who have run pass responsibilities and put them in conflict.
Trey, what do you think this week was like for those linebackers after what you observed and put on tape against the Bengals?
I mean, it should have been the same as what happened against the Rams.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a continuance of what happened against L.A. Again, you get a quarterback that can work you with his eyes, and it was the same type of result. So all you can do is go in and show them, okay, look, this is where you need to be. These are the responsibilities. When we bring a corner or whoever that's in motion and he's on the end of the line, he has a running back. You need to drop back into your zone. You see too many times where it's just miscommunication and guys not being where they're supposed to be because they're paying attention to the quarterback's eyes.
All right, here are your inactives.
All right, inactives.
Nate Sudfeld, nothing surprising. Nate Sudfeld, well, as we know, he's no longer the number 2 quarterback. Deshaun Jackson, who's out, obviously. Jeffrey, who's out. Arcega-Whiteside, who's doubtful, is out. Casey Toohill, Hakeem Butler, and Avonte Maddox. Those are your 7 inactives for tonight's game for the Eagles, and I'll give you the Niners in a minute.
All right, well, obviously the quote-unquote big one is that Arcega-Whiteside is not going to play.
So they're going to dress 4 receivers, as we thought would be the case. And it's going to be a situation where John Hightower's got to show up. He's the guy that the Eagles felt had a great training camp. He's not shown up so far this season. He's got to get the job done. As Greg said, look, they need an X, he's going to have to be it probably.
Man, I mean, I try to be fair, but it almost seems like the Eagles need a miracle tonight. I know the 49ers are beat up, but, you know, you can't even capitalize on it because you're so beat up at areas that could help you that you may even be more beat up than they are, and that's tough to be because the 49ers are missing some key players.
I mean, the key thing really is you have to hope that Carson Wentz snaps out of it. He's been fighting, as we talked about earlier. I think he's going to have to play really, really good football. I would be surprised, maybe I'll be wrong, if Miles Sanders, you know, has 20 for 150. I think he'll be a solid game. I really like the player, as we all do, but I'd be surprised if they dominate this game with the run game.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to get into the complexion of the game in a minute. First, I want to tell everyone, if you're enjoying today's show, and I know that you are, so it's not even an if, the bright lights, the fancy graphics, the quality sound, it's all thanks to our team, Rebel Hill Productions. Reach out to Zach and Jim at Rebel Hill today for a free consultation to discuss your digital strategy and content needs at info@rebelhillconsulting.com. That's info@rebelhillconsulting.com, or you can call them, 215-688-8498. That is 668-8498. Rebel Hill Productions. We thank them. They're great people to work with. All right. So
also got the Niner inactives.
You got the Niners inactives?
Yes. Kello Witherspoon. Kello Witherspoon is the other corner that is inactive. So it's Garoppolo, Witherspoon, Mostert, Mosley, the corner. Dre Greenlaw is one of the starting linebackers. Daniel Helm, who's a tight end, and Tom Compton is a backup lineman. So they've got K'Wan Williams is
their slot.
Their slot corner. He is active. He was questionable.
Jason Verrett started last week for them and it looked very
good.
Again.
And he'll start again.
Very good.
Correct.
But
we'll start again.
That illustrates what I'm saying is they've got no Richard Sherman, he's on IR.
Yep.
No Emmanuel Mosley, right?
Correct.
And no Akilo Witherspoon.
He's
So
the
isn't
fourth
that
corner.
three of their four cornerbacks are out?
Yep.
But
got one left.
But you got three of your four wide receivers
know.
out.
It's
So what's the
amazing.
deal here?
Who
It's
wins?
like the
You're
old,
right. Who wins out?
It's
Look.
like the old draw in the Western where you turn around and you shoot each other. Nobody wins.
Well, Jason Verrett was a pretty high first-round pick who's
He was.
super talented. He's just been snake bit with injuries.
Yep.
Right.
But he looked very good last week.
Short guy, right? 5'8", 5'9", isn't
Maybe
he?
5'10"-ish, but he
Okay.
is an explosive athlete.
All right. Trey, give us an idea of, just give me the complexion of the game. No win-loss, just like, how is this game going to be?
I think it's going to be a physical game. It's something that's going to have to play between the tackles. I mean, you know, you have quarterbacks, both quarterbacks. To me, I think the way the struggle is with Carson, you know, he needs to bring it on a little bit. I need him to snap out of it. But, you know, when you look at what San Fran is doing, you have a quarterback with Mullins that's playing with a little bit of confidence. He's putting some balls in some tight areas. Has some receivers. He can play a little play action, can give you a lot of little different nuances. But I think it's going to be more on who's going to come out there with the right mindset. You know, is this team going to snap out of it and just come with that aggressive mindset? You start to see it a little bit against Cincinnati. But then when you see the guys get on the plane yesterday, it just seemed like everybody was walking the green mile. Like they were like, oh, man, you know what, I really don't want to get on this plane and fly across the country to go play. You know, to me, I need guys that's going to be ready to come out there and play. And if the Eagles can do that, then they have a chance.
Who was that guy on the team when you played that? When you guys were in a losing streak and you're getting on a long flight to play a good team, you knew was going to kind of perk everybody or have that intensity.
I mean, you had multiple guys. You had Hugh Douglas. You had Jeremiah Trotter. You had Dalk. You had myself. You had multiple guys that filled the role to make sure that when we got on the plane, there was a certain type of energy. You know, it has to be something created. And when you look back at the team and you see that most of the issues is just because of lack of just juice, man, that's a problem.
All right, well, we'll see how this game goes. It's time for our predictions. We're going to have to try to get this one right. Only Trey has been the only one that's actually gotten one right. So our friends at DraftKings tell us that the Eagles are getting 9 points today. The Niners are
right.
I can't remember the last time that the Eagles were this big of an underdog. Maybe when they played New Orleans a couple of years ago and lost like 41-7. I'd have to go back and check, but that's a pretty big spread. Over-under on the game is 45.5, which is fairly low scoring for what we've seen in the NFL for the first 4 weeks. So obviously the injuries play a part of that. If you want to go to DraftKings and make a wager, before you do that, make sure you check out our friends at BetQL. They're going to help you evaluate the game from every single statistical trend and analytical trend that you can get. I'm on BetQL right now. They also have a great app. I'm on BetQL.com. They're telling me that the sharp money is going, surprise, surprise, to San Francisco at 56%. The number of tickets on San Francisco is at 46%. They'll give you projected score, projected halftime score. They'll give you a write-up of where the simulations are. Right now, 42% of their simulations having the Eagles win, so obviously more of their simulations have San Francisco, 58%. They get into the turnover margin, and they get into all the individual stats as well. They've got them on Nick Mullins, what they're expecting from him, and Miles Sanders. So if you want to make a very smart wager on DraftKings, first make sure you go to our friends at BetQL, look them up, read their data, and then make your wager. And if you want 20% off when you're using BetQL, use the promo code BIRDS20. That's 20% off with BetQL using BIRDS20 as the promo code. All right, let's pick this game, fellas. Greg, I start off with you. How does it go?
I picked the Niners 30-17.
30-17. Okay. Do you feel like they're going to start to like domination from start to finish here, or pull away late?
I think right now that they're clearly just playing better football on both sides of the ball. I mean, look, we talked about the Niners' injuries on defense. We didn't talk about some guys that are playing really, really well on their defense. Their rookie D tackle, Javon Kinlaw, is kind of a man. He's been playing well through 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Kerry Hyder's a guy who's been with the Lions. He's been with the Cowboys.
Too, yeah.
He always plays well wherever he goes. We talked about Warner and Alexander. Their two safeties are very good, Jimmy Ward and Tart. You know, they've got good players. Yeah, everybody talks about Nick Bosa, and he's a great, great player. But it's not as if they're lacking with quality players.
Trey, how's this game going to go, brother?
You know what? I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a battle in there. But right now, you know, until the Eagles show me, you know, that they can snap out of it and come with some juice, I have to go with the 49ers right now, you know, just because I just don't see the energy from the guys the way it needs to be. When you have guys that are tapping out of games, you know, when you have guys that are dropping albums instead of trying to get back on the field, when you have guys, you know, that just shows a lot about what's going on with this team. And right now, I just can't pick them to win a game.
I got to say, last week, your pick was who knows.
Yeah.
In a tie is
A
literally
tie is
the
who knows.
epitome of who knows.
Which makes two wins for me.
Yeah, you get double points for that. I'm ready to just give you the title right now, man.
Like getting time and a half, man.
That's like literally picking a tie.
Yeah.
Adam, who's going to win the game?
Niners, they should not have much of a problem. I think the Eagles will fight. They're just so undermanned. Niners are playing better than the Eagles are. I got them 23-17. The team in Santa Clara, the 49ers, to win.
So I'm a big ebb and flow guy. I'm a big law of averages guy, and I always say you're never as bad as you think you are when you're losing, never as good as you think you are when you're winning. Got that from Joe Paterno. I can't, in good consciousness, though, talk about data and how the Eagles are due for a win when they're this banged up, this beat up, and have so much going against them, going on the road, and now Jordan Mailata about to make his first start at left tackle. So
Come on, Jordan.
we got to see.
68.
Go, Jordan.
I'm going Niners 27-17 for the final score there. So it's
we're
a clean
close.
sweep.
We're close.
49ers, and we'll see if the Eagles can prove us wrong. We'll see if they are against all odds. That's Deshaun Jackson said on his last album. Clearly plagiarizing from Phil Collins, as we know. Any quick fantasy tip for the game?
Greg Ward. Greg Ward is the guy here. I'll say
PPR?
this about Wentz. Yeah, Wentz really trusts him. Well, he's the last man standing at wide receiver. He's the one guy that he's played with before. So, to me, I think it's got to be Greg Ward tonight.
All right. Thanks to all of our friends for watching, everybody at home. Thanks to BetQL, to DraftKings, to Goose Island Brewhouse, a wonderful host place, and, of course, our friends Rubble Hill Productions. Make sure you check them out. And we'll be back here next week this time. Real quick, also make sure you're checking out Tales from the Blind Side with Trey Thomas, Jamal Jackson, Todd Hermans. That drops on Tuesday on the Inside the Birds platform. And then on Thursday, you get Trey Thomas, D-Gun in Grillin' the Birds. And, of course, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Inside the Birds podcast on all of your podcast platforms. Enjoy the game, everybody!